From backyard dreams to college fields to Major League Soccer. Today, 46 players will begin their professional journey in the city of brotherly love. Who will hear their name called by MLS Commissioner Don Garber? We will find out together. Welcome to the MLS Super Draft 2018, presented by Adidas. I am Andrew Wiebe, and we've got the first and second rounds coming to you live from the MLS Digital Studios right here in New York City, and I am joined by an amazing group of guys here. We'll start with Kalen Carr, the first of 3 first-round picks sitting at this very table. Go back to 2006, the number 10 pick of the Chicago Fire. He now is the host of The Movement and a fashion icon. Bobby Warshaw, he was number 17 in 2011 to FC Dallas. Longtime MLS defender, went over to Scandinavia, and then wrote a book, When the Dream Became Reality. He spent the last couple days at the Combine, and he will help us today to understand what's going down as some of these guys' dreams become reality. And then Ali Curtis, who's got bragging rights. Number 2 overall in 2001 to the Tampa Bay Mutiny. He went from MLS forward to MLS executive to New York Red Bulls sporting director. Now he's sitting at this table with us, helping us understand what's going down at all 23 draft tables. And Matt Doyle, who, look, you weren't picked, but that's okay. You're our tactical expert. You know these kids back to front. We've got a lot of news already going down here from the Super Draft. The trade this morning, Darwin Cerna to the Houston Dynamo from San Jose for allocation money. You've also got a big report coming down. LAFC perhaps moving into that number 3 position where DC United previously sat for allocation. Steve Goff of the Washington Post is reporting that. And we've got a signing. Norwegian international Joe Inge Berget, a forward coming to NYCFC. So much going down. And we've got Susanna Collins on the draft floor in Philadelphia. Susanna, how is it going? What's the vibe down there?
Hey guys, well, as you can see, a very, very big day here in the city of brotherly love. Lots of action happening at these tables behind me. We have a huge crowd of fans, very anxious to see who their team is going to pick today, and also a huge day for the players that are here. I had a chance to speak with some of the Generation Adidas guys last night, Eddie Opoku of Virginia in particular, and I asked him how he was feeling ahead of today, and he said more excited than nervous, but that he definitely anticipated not getting a lot of sleep the night before. So we shall see, but for these guys, Andrew, it all starts today.
It does, and the number 1 pick is coming up in just a few minutes. Matt McCune, throwback, all the way back to 1996. The KC Wiz took him with the first ever pick. Matt, there is quality generally available at number 1. What do we have in this year's draft to choose from?
Well, it's still quality. I'm not sure that there's a difference maker in the way that, say, Jack Harrison was a couple of years ago, or Kyle Larin, Andre Blake before that. And look, there's still quality in the draft. It's still an important player acquisition tool. It is less important than it used to be, though, because if you look at the way MLS has evolved, especially over the last 3 years, the best young players coming into the league, they're either coming in via the homegrown system or via transfers from South America in particular. Guys like Jesus Medina, guys like Coleman, who just arrived in Orlando City, maybe Barca will be joining them. These are all teenagers, and they're ballers, and it has adjusted the way I think MLS teams approach the draft.
Yeah, I think teams still approach the draft very similar to the way they did years ago. I think when you're talking about level of importance, that's varied a bit. The draft has changed substantially over the last 10 to 15 years. You look at the GA class this year, there's 7 guys signed. In years past, there's typically 10 to 15. So even numerically, when you're thinking about those top young players, that's changed a lot. And much of it has been as a result of MLS investing a lot in youth development and academies. Started in 2007. Now you see this homegrown movement, and a lot of those top young players are now being signed directly to their teams.
Lillard, Cam Lindley, who was just traded to Orlando City. There's a whole bunch of them, Andrew. College soccer is still good, but it's not. It doesn't all filter through the draft like it used to.
Not every player taken will have a productive MLS career, but you've got to be prepared, Ali. And some of these staffs will be more so than others, depending on their spot. How did you and the Red Bulls prepare?
Well, I think every team has an opportunity to go and in market and watch a player play. That's the best way to really get a feel for if a player is going to be successful or translate into the next level. A lot of times when you go on road trips, when you go to D.C. To play D.C. United, you go and you watch Georgetown play, maybe you watch George Washington. So a lot of times during the season, it's a long season, you can go and you can watch players. And then just online and on television, you get a chance to really get a feel for a player. And then really, you know, aside from the on-field stuff, you really want to try to give a phone call to the youth coach. Maybe you know a parent. Maybe you know his college coach, but really trying to figure out who this person is that you're drafting.
You investigate their social media as well?
If
Twitter,
you can.
Facebook, Bumble.
Digging in.
Tinder?
I think you got to try to find as many sources as possible to find out the type of person that you're drafting. You're bringing a person into your locker room, in your environment, and every decision counts. Every decision is important. And so you've got to do your homework.
LAFC, Bob Bradley. We know he has a burner account. That's what he told Extra Time Radio. They have the first pick. They're on the clock. Bank of California Stadium being constructed right now, as is their first ever roster, Kalen. They've got the number one. Maybe they get a difference maker, but ultimately it's a much bigger group they have to put together here.
Well, they've got the right man to lead the charge, and that's Bob Bradley, probably the biggest signing of that club so far. You got to remember, led the only expansion team ever to win MLS Cup in its first year, Chicago Fire, 1998. Obviously international experience, but come back now to MLS at the right time in his career, the right challenge for him. He's got some nice pieces with Carlos Vela, so Gabor, some of these other Zimmerman within the league, and now it's his chance to build out that roster with some young, exciting prospects.
And Bob Bradley looks forward to grooming these guys. Some coaches will say, how do I fit him? How do I fit him in? What do I do? Not Bob Bradley. He'll be excited to produce them, to groom them, and to help them grow.
Bobby was at the Combine.
Yeah.
He watched these games firsthand. Who are the possible picks that Bob Bradley and LAFC, as you see at the table here, could go for?
There's a few options. If he wants the most prepared player, he probably goes João Moutinho or Tomas Hilliard-Arce. If he wants the highest ceiling, if he wants to take a lottery pick and just go with the player who might turn into the full international, maybe it's Atua Hene, maybe it's Chris Mueller, Baquero. It really has to depend if he wants to take the guy who will be in the league for 10 years, Doyle, as you like to say, or the guy who can be the all-star, the best 11 player.
I think the highest ceiling is probably Atua Hene, but he's also the lowest floor. Of the top group, he's
It's a
the
dangerous
one.
pick.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
he's dangerous. And I think that if you're, again, this gets back to what I was saying about how the draft has changed. If you're going to take your high ceiling guys, you're going to get them on the international market. You're going to get them with pro experience, like they went and got Diego Rossi, the young DP out of Uruguay. So they've already kind of done that. And to me, it makes more sense to use the draft at this point, if you're LAFC, to get the guys who are going to be solid 10, 12-year vets. And that could be Hilliard-Arce, that could be Moutinho, who plays left back, which is all, I mean, everybody in the world needs a left back.
All right, the pick is in. Let's go out to Philadelphia, where Bob Bradley and LAFC will find out who the first ever Super Draft pick in their history is. Commissioner Don Garber will share that with us right now. Before we get there, somebody's going to have a dream made, and we'll see that in just a second. See the 3-2-5-2 getting rowdy. Made the trip all the way from L.A. What is the guy going to feel, Kalen, when he walks up to that podium?
Well, this is the end of a long journey for these players. I mean, they started off playing, AYSO, then maybe make their way up through the college system. I just remember looking back. I was actually in Philadelphia for my draft in 2006 and had my mom there, some high school friends, sitting next to Kai Kamara. And I remember my mom actually had to tie both of our ties.
Really?
So we've come a long way,
You tied that one, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Some of us are still maybe working their way up. No.
I love the swagger from Bob, turning this card in so early.
All right, Commissioner is headed to the podium now. LAFC on the clock. They've got their draft card filled out. Who will be at the number one pick?
Good morning. With the first pick of the first round of the 2008 MLS Super Draft, the Los Angeles Football Craft select from the University of Akron a member of Generation Adidas defender João Moutinho. The LA Galaxy are now on the clock.
Love here, going down the line. John Moutinho getting the handshakes, heading on stage for his speech. The streak continues. Generation Adidas signings have gone #1 since 2003. He's a defender. He's got a cultured left foot. He had a little bit of a tough combine, Bobby, but this is a guy that a lot of people see a lot of upside from.
I totally see the upside. I understand why they like him. He's a good passer. He's calm on the ball. He's got all those qualities. But I'm also a little concerned about some things. If they do play him at left back, he's a little tall, but not only is he tall, but he plays high. He's got a high center of gravity. I don't know how he deals with little wingers running at him. The second part that worries me is that he's calm, but he's almost too calm. Andrew, he looks disinterested at times, which at the same time, I'm sure Bob Bradley is excited to coach out of him and get him to be a full professional day in and day out.
You know who he reminds me of? Todd Donovan. Stanford. Another Stanford grad.
What's going on, Cal Stanford?
But a left back, a guy who's comfortable on the ball, can get forward in the attack.
It's a good call.
Can switch the field in 10-plus year career, fistful of rings to show for it. I think if they can get that type of production out of him, that would be amazing for LA.
I think he is, to me, he's a little bit, if you play him as a fullback, he's a little bit more of a left-footed Tony Beltran, in that he's going to push up and he's not going to overlap. He's going to push up to support the attack and pick out passes into the feet of guys. And he could play left back in a back four. He could play left center back in like a 3-5-2. He could even play, I think, maybe a little bit as a defensive midfielder.
Right now you see DC United still holding on to that 3 pick. It is not official. LAFC are reportedly moving into the 3 as well. But right now, LA Galaxy are on the clock. And Ali, 2017 was not what they expected, at least by their standards. A tough season they have to bounce back from.
Yeah, absolutely. They had a really difficult season. A lot of moving parts in terms of players and coaching and staffs. They've changed a lot. This is a big year for them. They made some changes to address the goalkeeping position, which is nice. They brought in Perry Kitchen to help with, the back third. And now, we'll see if they'll be looking to improve their offense or maybe even their midfield.
I think like every person that we've seen on these low light clips is gone from LA. So Ziggy's done work. Well, he's not gone. That's Alessandrini, who's obviously going to be the centerpiece. But they've done a good job, I think, in stabilizing the back line, defensive midfield, and goalkeeper, which was job one for them. And I think what they need now is to go out and get that big number 9. So I think whatever happens right here, this is trade bait.
Yeah.
This is absolutely trade bait.
So, they had a tough year last year. This is an extremely important year for them to do well. So, especially when you look at statistically those top 5 picks, someone within the top 5 is going to get moved.
Yeah.
And so is it going to be the Galaxy? Maybe. But we'll just have to see.
Well, it's funny, these two teams from Los Angeles picking back-to-back, because it's a bit of a preview of this series that's going to happen between them. And LAFC is knocking on that door, making some pretty big moves here. So LA Galaxy really need to get off to a good start this year.
Some news on the draft floor. Siggy Schmidt is not at the LA Galaxy draft table. He came down with the flu in Orlando at the Combine, laid him low for a couple days. He is still not able to be a part of this in person, but he is monitoring by phone, perhaps watching this broadcast, back in his hotel room. Susanna Collins is standing by with the #1 overall pick, John Moutinho.
All right, Joao, you're looking good in the black and gold. Can we do the big reveal that Bob Bradley did? There it is. There it is. All right, so you probably anticipated this moment before, but you are the first ever draft pick for LAFC. What was going through your mind when you heard your name called?
I mean, it's just a roller coaster of emotions, to be honest. I mean, this is something that I've never dreamt about when I came here, and to be the first pick in such a great group of players, I mean, it's just an honor for me, really.
A great group of players and a pretty great coach in Bob Bradley. How much are you looking forward to playing under him?
I mean, he's just such an emblematic coach, and I can't wait to start the season, really.
Joao, congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
John Moutinho, the second Akron player to be taken #1 overall. Steve Zakuani was the other. He had a decent MLS career, unfortunately cut by injuries. LA Galaxy, as you can see here, called a timeout. You get 1 per. This probably means trade talk, right, Doyle?
Mm-hmm. It's got to. I don't think it could mean anything else, because they had to know Moutinho was coming off the board #1, and they have their top 4 or 5, and if they're not making the pick already, it's because they are moving this. My guess is just for money.
Kamara?
Yeah, with the idea that they're going to go out and try to get Ola Kamara, who asked out of Columbus last month along with Justin Miram, and if he's available and you're a team that needs #9, I mean, that's pretty easy math.
Yeah.
Ali, the pace with which this goes, 4 minutes may seem like a long time when we're sitting here talking, but as you try to strike a deal, get it approved by the league, that's quick.
I just want to point out, sorry, let me interrupt. 4 minutes is a lot longer for the people listening to us.
I'm guessing that the discussion didn't talk on the draft floor. You know, I'm sure that the discussion started weeks ago, if not months ago, in terms of what they wanted to do with their pick. And this is just maybe another offer has come in last minute, and so they want to evaluate maybe 1 or 2 different offers at the same time, and that's why they're having to call the timeout. But this conversation happened either, you know, months ago, or maybe at the combine, or maybe, you know, I've been in situations where we had conversations the night before, and then we literally finalized the literally on the draft floor. So a lot of things going on.
Here's the LA Galaxy table right here. Kurt Schmidt, Pete Vinas, Dom Kinnear, Jovan Karofsky. They're counseling right now, trying to figure out what they're going to do during this timeout. They're on the clock at number 2. We will see what happens from them. I mean, this is an interesting case because you look at the reported trade right now, still DC United in that 3 spot, but the report from Steve Gosh of the Washington Post is that it's $200K, half GAM, half TAM that will move. That will have set the market a little bit, Ali. How might that trade have affected conversations?
So I think that, like, you know, it doesn't set a market. Sometimes it has a tendency to confuse the market, or maybe it has some type of ancillary impact because it makes you think about something a little bit differently. Perhaps it makes you hesitate a little bit. So it doesn't set the market, but definitely it influences things in a way in which it slows or delays things down, which, you know, you've got timeouts going on and a lot of other things. So. Yeah.
Somebody's going to take this pick. Doesn't matter if it's LA Galaxy or whoever, Bobby. Who is at play here? Who do you think could be taken second?
You know, my thing about the Galaxy is we feel a bunch of panic. We talk about them all the time. We say they're in shambles, but that's a really good team. That's got to be one of the best teams to ever have a number 2 pick in MLS history. That front 6 can play with anyone. So it kind of depends where their mindset is. Are they trying to? What?
They couldn't last year.
But he would still take that team. If you're going to put out a first 11, a lot of MLS teams would take that squad right now.
That's fair.
So it's a big decision by the organization. Are we okay? Do we find a piece to bring in? Do we get a younger piece? Do we try and move for the future?
What would you do? I think there's a lot of stuff going on, and that, like, every team has a different roster and they're at different stages of where they are. And so you got a team like maybe Toronto that has a tremendous amount of depth, and so they actually probably have the flexibility to go to the LA Galaxy and say, hey, you know what, we've got a proven player, or maybe a proven player plus a draft pick that we think can help you today, and we know you want to win today, and therefore they're in a position to potentially trade up and get a player that maybe is going to help them tomorrow.
What I like about the Galaxy this offseason is they've strengthened up the spine. So they started it with Bingham in the back. You bring in Perry Kitchen, who I think is going to add a lot of leadership to this team. MLS experience between both of those two. You still have Jonathan Dos Santos, another leader. And then Sebastian Lletget, a guy that's been forgotten about, but will be coming back and be healthy. His injury last year really turned the table for them. All
right, the pick is in right now, so we will find what happens. We are headed out to Philly right now for the 2nd overall pick in the 2018 MLS Super Draft presented by Adidas. Let's see whose name is called.
With the 2nd pick of the 1st round of the 2018 MLS Super Draft, the LA Galaxy select from Stanford University, defender Tomas Hilliard-Arce.
DC United are now on the clock.
Tomas Hilliard-Arce, one of 4 seniors already signed before this MLS Super Draft, comes out of Stanford, where he won 3 straight national titles. Certainly a winner. Some questions about his athleticism at the Combine. Bobby, I'll start with you, Stanford man. What do you make of him?
The hardest thing about picking these kids is that you don't really know what you're going to get in an MLS club. It's hard to tell what skills, how good they are from college to pros. But Tomas is one of the guys that you can trust. It just feels like you know what you're getting day in and day out. So when he shows up that first day of preseason, you know what player to expect.
All right, LA Galaxy may not actually hold on to this player. I'm just throwing out scenarios here. Jack Harrison was taken number 1 overall 2 years ago. He was traded a few minutes later. So that timeout, that may be something to come, Doyle. If they do hold on to him, where does he fit in?
Right in the middle of that back line. And I think they should hold on to him because he is the I mean, you could see they need depth in central defense. You saw it last year, and as Bobby said, he's a sure thing. He might never be an all-star, but he's going to be a good defender in this league for a decade.
So I don't, none of these players have played one game. So to Bobby's point, there's uncertainty. They've never played a professional game in their career. So anytime you have a chance to have a player that, like we talked about, 3-time national champion, 2-time captain, and he's right up the road 6 hours away from the Galaxy, they have an opportunity to see that player, to really get a sense of who that player is on and off the field. It reduces that uncertainty, and hopefully that pick is a lot.
All right, 2 center backs with the Galaxy right now, Bobby, both on significant contracts. Skelvish brought in this offseason Siani last summer. Where does he fit in here in this 11?
The thing about Tomas, it's maybe he doesn't fit into the 11 right away, but what he does really well is he holds his teammates accountable. And this is a team, as I said earlier, of stars. But the problem with that, guys, is sometimes they take games off. Sometimes they take plays off, and Tomas doesn't allow that. So even if he doesn't fit into your 11 right away, just the mentality he brings every single day could raise the level of this team.
I could easily see him challenging for a spot. I spoke to the Berkeley coach about him. He compared him to Jimmy Conrad, actually. Now, Jimmy, I think, had the beer and the coffee, maybe a problem for him. But but when you look at this lineup here, the strength in the middle here stands out. Kitchen, Santos, and Santos. If he slides in here, this is a nice little spot. And then, of course, Leggett, so versatile, can play on the wing or tuck inside. But this seems to be the question mark up top. Can Zardes recapture his form from a couple years prior?
Will he still be there, guys? That's the other question. He's involved in these trade
They've got
talks.
to trade this pick. You don't take a timeout on the number 2 pick. Take the guy everyone thought you were going to take and not trade it at the end.
Maybe it's what Ali said. Maybe it's they took the timeout and they thought they were going to get better offers and it never came. And they said, all right, you know what? He's the number 1 on our board. He gives us something solid that we can build on.
All right, DC United on the clock right now. We will see what happens with this one. Of course, rumors of a possible trade. There are no doubts about where they will play this summer. It'll take a little while. They'll be on the road, but Audi Field is finally open. A gorgeous stadium here. DC United, Matt, bringing in some depth in central midfield. They do still have some work to do. They could use this pick, but all reports, all indications are they will trade it.
Yeah, it's all indications are that it's already been traded to LAFC. Look, the number 1 guy, the 2 guys left on the board who are elite are John Baccaro and Francis Atuani. Both guys are internationals. I don't think DC have a single international spot left. That tells me the pick's already been traded.
When you look at the trade negotiations here and you hear the rumors of 200, half GAM, half TAM, does that feel like good value?
It kind of resonates. It kind of makes sense. It seems appropriate and hits the market, in terms of that 3rd slot. The question I have is if there was a trade involved, is there going to be another trade? Or is the team that actually traded to get the slot, are they actually selecting a player, or are they selecting a player if only to move them on? So there's a lot of different scenarios that could unfold. We just got to wait and see.
DC United look calm, by the way. Dave Casper, Benny Olsen,
they've been
Zach
doing this
Thornton,
for a while.
they're just hanging out.
They've been
no
doing
biggie.
They've been doing this for years.
Does $200,000 get you a starter in this league? What is the interleague trade value of $200,000?
Yeah, so 200 gets you a starting player. It depends on what player and how much, what that budget number that player coming on your team is at. But certainly, yeah.
All right, guys, let's go back out to Philly. Commissioner Don Garber headed to the podium, about to find out if DC will use this or trade this as reported.
We have a trade to announce, and that is a trade involving DC United and LAFC. DC United have traded the 3rd pick in the 2018 MLS Super Draft to LAFC for $100,000 in general allocation money and $100,000 of targeted allocation money. And with the 3rd pick of the 1st round, the 2018 MLS Super Draft, LAFC select from the University of the Pacific defender Tristan Blackman.
The Montreal Impact are now on the clock.
3252, loving it. Tristan Blackmon, nobody's going to miss him on the field in LA. He's got that bleach blonde shock on top. A fullback has the physical gifts to impact the game, Bobby. This was a little bit earlier, though, than we expected him to go.
This is the first wow pick. You could not have seen this one coming. He had a poor combine, but going into it, he was a top-rated outside back. The one part about this is when you build an expansion team, you need depth, you need versatility. Like João Moutinho, Blackmon can play both center back and outside back.
I guess. I mean, we haven't seen a lot of him playing a center back. He does have the size and the physical tools for it. It would be a learning curve for him. And bear in mind, they already have Bédécher, who they signed as a free agent, and they have Omar Gaber, who's an Egyptian international, who's kind of more of a right back, maybe wing back type of player. It's a weird pick, but I think it shows that that domestic tag is worth more and more these days because teams, again, MLS teams have more money to use on their budget than ever before, so they can go out and buy internationals who are a little bit more proven than what you find in the draft.
Absolutely. So you look at the injection of cash into the system over the last 3 or 4 years, and it gives teams a lot more resources to liquefy the market. And you look at now, you've got an expansion team. The expansion teams get more resources to make these sorts of trades, and they become pretty prevalent. So in 2015, you saw NYCFC. They made a move in the 3rd pick, and now you're seeing LAFC with expanded resources, and they're using those resources to in some ways that they want to get.
If I'm Mark Segvers and Brendan Bai, who are the 2nd and 3rd right backs on most draft pools, you're doing the
feeling good.
Yeah.
You're feeling who had better combines than Blackmon and shot up the draft board.
With that being said, the combine it's an artificial environment that is 3 or 4 days long, and these teams, you hope, are making their decisions based on an entire body of work. That body of work being 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, or 4 year, but it can't just be a 3 or 4 day scenario.
Don't knock the combine though, because Bobby was a combine hero, so you'll hurt his feelings.
Listen, I was the combine MVP. I'm just putting, I don't know what to make of that. I don't know what to make of that prognostication.
We're not talking about Bobby Warsaw. Caitlin, you mentioned 2 defenders here for LAFC, and they're going outside backs, it seems, because João Moutinho projects on the left side. Why do you think that is?
Well, I think LAFC is coming in more along the Atlanta United model. They're going to use a lot of money towards their bigger players going towards the attack, and then you fill out the rest of the roster with young players who can be versatile, play in the back depth. But you look at this back line, they've already got Walker Zimmerman, Simon, Jordan Harvey, Bédécher, now some depth pieces to play around them. That back line is looking strong already.
All right, the pick is out in Philadelphia. Montreal Impact with 2 picks at the 4 and 7 here early in the 1st round. Let's go to Philly and see who gets taken with the 4th pick.
We have another trade to announce involving FC Dallas and the Montreal Impact. The Montreal Impact have traded the 4th pick in the 2018 MLS Super Draft to FC Dallas in return for $200,000 of general allocation money. And with the 4th pick of the 1st round of the 2018 Super Draft, FC Dallas select from the University of Michigan and a member of Generation Adidas, midfielder Francis Atu-Ahene.
Minnesota United FC are now on the clock.
Second GA to come off the board, Francis Atu-Ahene out of Michigan, came out after his junior season. Injuries slowed him down a little bit. 10 goals in the freshman season for him, and then it kind of slowed down. He needs to stay on the field, but FC Dallas trading up $200,000 in general allocation money to move into this spot. He was a 2-time all first-team Big Ten player. He's from Accra, right to dream, one of 3 in that Generation Adidas class. Had a nice goal at the MLS Combine. Late on, very, very late on, showed some explosiveness. Let's go back out to Philadelphia right now, though, because Susanna Collins is standing by with Bob Bradley, who had 2 of the first 3 picks.
Okay, Bob, a very busy day for you so far. The number 1 pick was João Moutinho. You trade up to get the number 3 pick, Tristan Blackmon. What do you like about these players? Why are they a good fit for your squad?
I think both are good footballers. João is very skillful, can play some different positions. And we just looked and saw a player that's young and that really has a big upside. And Tristan is a really interesting one. He's from Las Vegas. He's grown a lot at the University of Pacific, and we really feel that this is somebody that at the next level is going to show people that there's a lot there. So both for us are exciting young players that we're looking forward to working with.
As you look to establish the identity of the team that you're assembling, how important is a day like today?
For sure, we're trying to build a roster, and our idea from the beginning is to get as many good players and as many good guys together and start going. We really want to be a team that is all about our football, and so in order to do that, you got to get players that you think understand the game and players that will understand the transition from college soccer to professional soccer. And I think with both players, we feel strongly that they've got that ability.
Bob, thanks so much for the time.
Okay, thank you.
Minnesota United on the clock right now with that 5th pick. Let's go back to Francis Atuahene-Doyle. There's been some question marks. Is he going to deliver?
There are some question marks because he didn't deliver on a game-by-game basis for Michigan. You saw the highlight film. He's ridiculous. He has the talent, but he hasn't had the consistency and he hasn't had the health, and that is why he dropped from probably number 1 to number 4. But look, Oscar Pareja is a guy who has pretty consistently felt like he could get the best out of young players, and if they do sell Michael Barrios, Atuahene really does fill a need for them. But he, like we said at the start, man, highest ceiling in the draft, lowest floor.
What was that number, though? What was the allocation number?
200 in GAM. Straight GAM.
So they traded more. They traded more value for the 4th pick than LAFC traded for the 3rd pick. So I don't think that's a great look for DC United.
When we talk about taking lottery tickets in the draft, this guy's it. This is the guy that could change an organization. I mean, they've needed to replace Fabian Castillo for a few years, and this is the guy, if he develops, can be it.
They've needed to find goals as well. You know, they struggled trying to find goals down the stretch last season. This guy gives you a chance. You see him on the turn. Atuahene can finish with both feet. A nice player. I think this is a good value pick at the 4th spot. Rumored to go as high as number 1 on a lot of
You
mock
can
boards.
easily see him running onto through balls from Mauro Diaz. And we also saw, like, we talked about his finishing and his highlights. He hit some passes during the combine. He hit an outside of the foot slicing pass across 3 lines. 3 vertical lines to find a runner on the other side of the box. It was the best pass of the combine. The kid can play. Oscar Pareja's just got to figure out how to bring it out of him on a weekly basis.
Well, Oscar can do that. He's an excellent coach when it comes to bringing in young players. I don't like the lottery ticket reference because I don't think you should be playing the lottery with the third pick. That's a pick even in a really uncertain draft. You want to make sure that you have that. I do like, Bobby, I like your comment on his upside because that's remarkable. And when you think of even in 2015 when NYCFC selected Jack Harrison. Yes, there were some injury concerns, and he got injured when he first came into the league, but he's delivered. And if you ask any club in this league if they'd take that player for $200,000 of allocation, I think they'd do it in a heartbeat.
But bear in mind, Harrison is actually younger than Atuahene. So when you
21, just to put that up.
Yeah, 21 years old. Yeah, he'll turn 22 in the middle of the season. So it's like we're seeing MLS get younger and younger by going out and getting guys like Coleman and like, Barco, hopefully, and stuff like that. So I think there's less of a taste for developing a 21, 22-year-old than maybe there used to be.
All right, a timeout currently for Minnesota United. Susanna is standing by there with Alexi Lawless and Stu Holden from Philly.
Hey guys, all right, so neither of you were actually drafted at one of these events, but I want to ask to get the players' perspective, what's going through these guys' heads today as they're waiting to hear their name called?
Look, they're thinking that this is the moment when they start their professional career, and so they're thinking about making money and being famous and having people talk to them and scoring goals and traveling the world and all that kind of stuff. The reality is that only a small percentage will fulfill that, but you got a dream, and this is the start of a dream for a lot of them.
And Stu, for you, when you look at the teams that are here today, who has the most to lose and gain on a day like Super Draft?
I think LAFC, because LAFC need more players. I was looking at it before. They only had 12 players signed coming into this. Preseason starts in 2 or 3 weeks, so I think if they could take 8 or 9, they probably would. But knowing Bob, he's waiting to announce them later. But it's been interesting walking through the lobby here and seeing some of the players and meeting some of these young players that are going to be in Major League Soccer, just so nervous and shaking their hands, and they're, that anxiousness of waiting for their name to be called. Some, like Alexi said, might not get called, but then still have the opportunity to go into training camp, because ultimately there's a lot of roster spots that need to be filled out.
But it's also it's about hedging your bets if you're these teams, because the reality is that I always thought that if you came out of a draft with one player that was significant, and significant means either a starter, that would be great, or a player that plays significant minutes, then I think you've had a successful draft. And I think that that's what they do, and they better have done their homework, and I think a lot of them have. In the past, sometimes people haven't done their homework, or they use it as an opportunity to acquire monies that they then go use on players that they might want. So ignore the draft at your own peril if you are a GM or any type of team.
Guys, always great to see you. Thanks so much for the time.
Thank you.
All right, let's sum it up as it's happened so far. Number 1 overall to LAFC, João Moutinho, the Generation Adidas product out of Akron, 19 years old, one of 2 teenagers at the MLS Combine. Number 2, the sure thing, Tomas Hilliard Arce, the center back from Stanford, 3-time national title winner. Tristan Blackman, Pacific. Francis Atuene of Michigan goes 4. We've already seen 2 trades go down. LAFC took a timeout. We think they might be talking. Minnesota United take a timeout. It's flying thick and fast in there, Matt.
Yeah, it is. And we've heard rumors about maybe the Union trying to trade up and get a player in the top 5. We've heard it. I've heard a lot about the Fire maybe trying to trade up and get a player in the top 5. John Baccaro is the consensus best talent left on the board. He's a playmaking center forward. There's also Chris Mueller from Wisconsin, who's more of a second forward type of guy. He just finds good spots in the attacking third. And then there's just a couple of good Generation Adidas players who feel more like flyers at this point. But the big name is the big guy, Wyatt Omberg from Dartmouth, 6'4".
He's got to go next.
Right?
He's got to go to Minnesota.
Minnesota United, you see them handing in either a draft card or a trade card. We will find out. They need to do some building as well. This, Kalen, has not been a busy offseason so far for the Loons.
They finished the season actually pretty well, though. They not the best inaugural season, especially in comparison to Atlanta United, who kind of stole the show. But they finished strongly, 4-4-2 down the stretch. The big question for me with this team is, how does Abu Danladi and Christian Ramirez operate up top together, or can they? Is it going to be one at a time with Danladi coming off the bench as it was through long stretches, or can you get both of those 2 guys on the field at the same time working together? All
right, a little note here for you. Chicago Fire have apparently taken a timeout as well. That goes back to what you said, Matt. Have you heard about who they might be interested in here? Who do you think it might be?
I honestly don't know. I just have a hunch that it's going to be Baccaro. Again, the best player left on the board, and he's a guy who you could play as sort of a secondary forward underneath Nikolic. And Baccaro he's an artist with the ball. He's a guy who can beat guys just by being more skillful and has the vision to make special plays. And there are questions like, could he be a lead the line forward because he's not super athletic? Well, if the Fire take him, he's not playing as a lead the line forward. He's playing as an in-the-pocket playmaker. Bobby, you loved him at the Combine.
I loved him, but I also have concerns about, like you said, about his engine. Where do you fit him into a team? But that's not a concern with the Fire, because he's a similar player to Nikolic. He's not chasing into the channels. He's going to get the ball at his feet. He's going to get in the box. And they've got David Accam out wide to run in behind and be the speedster. So I really like Baccaro. I have concerns, but those concerns aren't as important if he does go here to the Chicago Fire.
You said Nikolic. Can I throw out the name Michael Delu?
Yeah.
He's a guy who's been injured, who played in that pocket, who has some of those similar abilities. Do you worry about athleticism as a GM, Ali? Or are you just like, look, he's a good soccer player. He will fit in. He will make plays.
I think you worry about everything as a GM. I mean, you're in it to win it. I mean, everything counts. I think what I find most interesting is that maybe a little bit different than years past is that every club has a different opinion about the same player. And so with that, there's all this uncertainty, or there's differing opinions about where you value this player or where he goes. And so I think that's why we're seeing this trade market a little bit more active than maybe in years past. It's just because there's just so many different opinions about the exact same player.
Ali, you mentioned the scouting departments for these clubs, and a lot of it is regional. I look at a guy like Mueller in Chicago being in Wisconsin. He fits that role this team needs, someone who can really create from underneath. The Fire haven't had that guy. They've been rumored to be on the market for a player like Lee Wynn. New England Revolution, Brad Friedel not want to giving him up at all. So I think Mueller is a nice pick, a good target for Chicago, especially with the Midwest connection.
Mueller is a Chicago kid, and he played for, I think it was Chicago Sockers or the Magic, and he turned down the Fire.
Because he wanted to be loyal. In his words, he wanted to be loyal.
Yeah, so there you go. Bringing him home to Chicago, I think, would resonate for the fan base, especially because the Fire just traded away one of the stars of their academy program in Cam Lindley, which is an understandable trade. Lindley didn't really fit a need for them because he's more of an 8, and you're not going to displace Dax McCarty or Bastian Schweinsteiger. Mueller, again, a Chicago kid, he, like Kalen was saying, he fits that spot right there.
So with that being said, it's nice that a player is local. It's nice that the player is, from the community. At the end of the day, he's got to be able to play, though, because you want to make sure that whatever player you're bringing in, you hope that he's around there for 10 years, So I really think that, and I know Nelson, Pano is an intense guy as well. I think they're trying to find the best player at that position.
No questions about,
it's nice if he's local, though.
Right, yeah. But we were talking about questions about Baccaro's athleticism. No questions about that with Mueller. He tested out as the quickest guy at the combine. Also, I think very fast, north-south, but more his ability to create separation in tight spaces.
Both those guys maybe looked the best on the ball at the combine. They're also signed to contracts right now. 2 of the seniors of the 4, Tomas Hildarse already off the board, signed 2 contracts. How does that play in when you're making a choice, Ali?
Well, I mean, you understand the economics, and you understand that the guy, if he's signed, that you can place him right on your roster, as opposed to if you do draft someone in the top 5, you want to make sure you bring him into camp, and all of a sudden they want to go try their hand in Europe or some other market. So it's good to know what you're getting, whether that's from a contract perspective or whether or not you know how they what their left foot looks like or how fast they can run.
Here's a question. We're talking about draft prospects, all that, this, that, and the other. Bastian Schweinsteiger just re-signed with the Chicago Fire. That is a bigger move than anybody they pick up here, Kalen. What did that mean for this franchise?
He's proven himself. There were a lot of doubters last year, which is funny to say for a World Cup winner, but about his age. And he proved last year he can drop back, distribute. The other big signing, of course, is extending Dax McCarty. So with those 2, you have a nice foundation going forward. David Accam also locked up into a long-term deal. His form faded. I think a little bit of disappointment around not making the All-Star team and then not having the contract he wanted. So those are the 3 big pieces for the Fire. And if you look back even a year prior, what a difference a year makes. They had a fantastic season last year, obviously blown out in the first round by the Red Bulls, but in a much better place going into this year.
It is confirmed, by the way, for those of you watching at home. Chicago Fire have made a trade. We are waiting for the details. We will relay those to you as soon as we can.
The thing about the Fire, too, you mentioned Schweinsteiger, Dax, who's getting a little older. Their window's now.
Yeah.
They're not looking for a project. They're not looking for a guy that's ready in 2 or 3 years. They're looking for a guy that can help them win right now while Schweinsteiger's still fit, while Dax is still in his prime.
Yeah, and that's why we're talking about Baccaro and Mueller, who I think are the 2 best win-now picks available at that spot. But we're going to look dumb if it's someone else. I mean, it could be Emma Twumasi, another right-to-dream winger from Ghana, played at Wake Forest. He was very, very good this season. Wasn't great at the combine, which shouldn't.
Because they have depth in the middle. They've got depth in passers and facilitators, but they could use another winger to back up Accam.
Absolutely, they could.
All right, look, the pick is in, or the trade is in, shall we say. Let's go out to Philadelphia to see what went down between Minnesota and the Chicago Fire.
We have a trade to announce involving Minnesota United and the Chicago Fire. Minnesota United have traded the 5th pick in the 2018 MLS Super Draft to the Chicago Fire in return for $75,000 in general allocation money, $100,000 in targeted allocation money, and the 15th overall pick in the first round, as well as a player to be determined. With the 5th pick of the first round of the 2018 MLS Super Draft, the Chicago Fire select from Wake Forest University and the 2018 MLS Combine Tom Fitzgerald Most Valuable Player forward John Baccaro.
Orlando City SC are now on the clock.
John Baccaro, the son of Jose Maria Baccaro, a legend at Barcelona with the Spanish national team. His pedigree is incredible. His stat line in his senior year is right on the same. 16 goals, 14 assists, Mac Hermann Trophy Award winner. What are they getting? How's he fit in?
They're getting a guy who played primarily as a center forward, but he was a playmaking, come off the line center forward. I think for Chicago, he would play underneath Nikolic and just be kind of like a floating number 10, almost in a 4-4-1-1. I love him. He's the best player in the draft, but I do worry about his ability to create separation on the ball.
I think he's a football player.
Yeah.
He knows how to play the game, and so he's got a good bit of skill. He's talented. He loves the game. He should fit in well with Bono.
All right, let's talk Minnesota, because the trade goes down. They get a haul of, let's see, 175 combined allocation, the number 15, and then there's that player to be named later. We don't know who that guy is just yet. Is this a win for Manny Lagos and the Loons?
It depends on how they use all of that allocation money they just got, and it depends on who that player is. I mean, we don't know enough about this to say whether or not this is a win for the Loons. I'm surprised they didn't go with Omberg, who, again, 6'4" center back, left-footed, distributes well, runs like a deer, tested out as probably the best athlete in the draft. But they have their needs, and we will just have to see.
That player to be named later, that is part and parcel having to notify that player. So we won't know until they know. Orlando are on the clock. Bobby and Kaylin, you're taking a look at what they've built so far down in Central Florida. What do you see?
I love talking Orlando guys because what I view them doing is so different than what you guys view them doing. My dream is that Jason Christ goes back to the diamond that did him so well at RSL. Pass, move, but the big talking point here, Sasha at the 6. He was a 10. He was a playmaker for Red Bulls. I'd love to see him drop deeper and facilitate more than playmake.
Bobby, I'm looking at your lineup here, and the one thing that stands out to me, Kyle Larin up top. Do you feel confident that he's going to be there amidst a lot of rumors, obviously seen pictured in Turkey? Can he still fit into this locker room? I understand he's still on the roster.
Listen, he's on the roster. When Kyle Larin's on your roster, you put him on the field, but at the same time, they might actually be better if he leaves. Listen, this whole organization needs a reboot on the field. They need a new approach, a new style. So am I confident? No, not at all.
Well, I actually think they may likely move him. I think Dom Dwyer plays better as a central striker. These two didn't really find their form. I'm going to take Kyle out of the lineup here. Come on, Kyle. I know you don't want to go, but Gita comes in. I think this is going to be moved around quite a bit. You can help me, Bobby. There you go, right up there. And I think Sasha comes up forward right here. And it starts to look a little bit like this. I think they've built it around Sasha. Christ is going to give him the keys to run the offense moving forward. Dom Dwyer, they can create a relationship, much like he did with Bradley Wright Phillips. I think this is probably more likely to what we'll see.
We've got Ali Curtis here, so much experience with Sasha Question. When you see him say, put him at the 6, when you see Kayla move him to the 10, how do you see Jason Christ using Sasha Question?
Well, I think that the formation that Orlando's going to start the season with is going to be much different than what they're going to end the season with. Sasha is a talented player. We all know that. He's experienced. We all know that. His skill level and talent, he can play a number of different positions within the midfield. It really will see how that team as a unit gels together in terms of where Sasha's actually going to play. Can he play on the outside? Absolutely, because he's skillful enough to be able to serve a great ball in there. Is he tough enough to be that number 8 and really kind of shepherd the midfield in terms of defensive and offensive responsibilities? I think so. He's experienced. He can take a hit and he can give a hit. But he's very, very talented on the ball. But I really think that Orlando team, the challenge there is how can they come together as a unit? How can they gel together? And the formation and all those things, they tend to work themselves out.
But Sasha had 17 assists last year, 20 the year prior. You got to get him as close to goal as possible. Let him work with Dom Dwyer, build a relationship. I think those two are the pieces going forward.
Give him options. That is what I would do right there, and Coleman has to be that guy as well. He's got to go out there and get double-digit goals.
All right, we'll see what happens. The pressure is on in Orlando. Jason Christ would certainly admit that, but the pick is in out in Philadelphia. Orlando City on the clock at number 6. Let's see who they took.
With the 6th pick of the first round of the 2018 MLS Super Draft, Orlando City SC select from the University of Wisconsin forward Chris Mueller.
The Montreal Impact are now on the clock.
Chris Mueller spent 4 years at Wisconsin, led the nation with 20 assists in 2017, had 9 goals to boot. He's the Big Ten Offensive Player of the Year, a second-team All-American, a solid career, but he really blossomed in his final season, Bobby. What do you see when you look at Orlando? How does he fit in? What's his ceiling?
This confirms what I was saying, guys. Mueller is a pass and move kind of guy. In college, he was a playmaker, 20 assists his senior season, but because he went for it often. At his best, at the MLS level, he won't be a guy that plays those through passes. He'll be a guy who gets it and gives it. Of these college players, it was him and Baquero who are the most comfortable on the ball, the most soccer ready, but Mueller needs to adjust his game a little bit to make it in MLS.
To me, he's a second forward. He's not a guy. We saw him play on the wing in the combine, and I know he did it maybe a little bit for Wisconsin, but that's not his game. He's better when he plays central because he is a pass and move guy, not a face up and beat a guy with his speed. I don't want to say it confirms to me that Jason Kreis is going to play that 4-4-2 diamond, but I think it makes
pulls you in. It pulls me in.
I'm still
I told you so.
nowhere near Sasha Kljestan is the number 6, though.
Okay.
Sasha Kljestan is not going to be a defensive midfielder, Bobby.
All right, look, Montreal Impact on the clock right now. They traded away the 4th pick, ended up being Francis Atuahene to FC Dallas, but they're on the clock now. Of course, Piatti, the man. He's been the man. He's back, but they are rebuilding this roster, Ali, after a tough 2017.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think Montreal is a team that they want to get back to form. Change in coaching staff. Piatti's an unbelievable player, as we all know. They want to make this pick count, but Montreal has been a really, really solid team in terms of how they've built their roster with internationals, as well as balancing a few things out with the draft. So it'll be interesting.
Well, they've definitely gotten more Canadian lately between getting Raheem Edwards and that trade with LAFC, and then they just signed Petrasso, who are the guys I think will be starting at the fullbacks for them. They still have Balou Jean-Yves-Tabla, who is one of the highest upside young players in the league, but the question is, how much longer will they have him? And the fact that he's a question mark and Piatti is maybe going to play central leads me to believe they're going to take a
All right, Remy Gard is the new head coach here, and that's worth mentioning. You've got a guy who has a lot of experience international. Lyon, of course, came up through that academy, was a great player in his own right as well. What do they get here? What do we think the direction of the club is going to be, Kalen?
Well, they need to get younger. Patrice Bernier, Donadel, some of these guys. Patrice obviously retired, but this club has young talent. You want to see Tabla get some more opportunities. Jackson Hamel up top, I think you should give him a run out. See, he scored goals in limited minutes. Strengthening through the academy, through the draft, this is the type of club that needs to use these mechanisms to get better because they have some experienced top-end talent in a guy like Piatti. They just need more pieces around him.
And I think from now until probably you're thinking maybe the 10th to 12th pick, you're not so much picking positionally as you're picking, okay, is he a GA or a college senior, so therefore I can put him on my supplemental roster because he won't hit my cap. Can I get the best player available, I think, is what you're really trying to get.
Bobby, who are those players?
Well, Montreal needs talent. Let's not beat around the bush here, guys. Montreal has a lot of work to do. It's got to be Omsberg. It's got to be the center back. There's very few places in this draft where a guy can go in and play right away, and one of them is center back in Montreal. Wyatt Omsberg's got to be the guy.
Yeah, if you look at the way they've gotten beat up in the air and out-physicaled over the last couple of years, adding a guy who's 6'4", 190 pounds, and I know that's a very regressive way to discuss this game of ours, but sometimes it comes down to that. They need that physical presence. It should be Omsberg, but you don't know how a coach who's new to the league is going to view this draft and view this opportunity. He might just aim for the youngest player available, especially because Remy Gard has a reputation for coaching up young players.
Some notes here. Laurent Simon, gone to LAFC. You've got Dejan Voldor. They cut him. He's gone. Juan Lefebvre, gone. So center back is open.
Yeah, the only thing I would say to that is if there is a consensus that we feel that Montreal needs talent and they need talent at the center back position, arguably one of the most important positions on the field, it is in the spine. And if you think that by bringing a player in from the draft is going to help you solidify that position, that's a real risky decision to make.
I totally disagree with that, actually.
I think you really have to sometimes go into the international market a lot of times, or maybe trade for a veteran player. If you think this is the position, this is the player that's going to get me into the playoffs or let me go further.
I totally disagree with that. One thing we learned from Bob Bradley, one of the reasons he took center backs, because they're the one position that can translate from a lower level to a higher level easily. When you see a good center back at the youth level, at the college level, it's easier to predict that he can be a good professional level, not to mention the qualities you need at that position are the kind of qualities you groom in college soccer: accountability, discipline, hard work, organization. So to me, center back is the most predictable and the best position to take in a draft.
So I don't necessarily agree with all of your analysis, but what I would say is that, so LAFC was in a much different position than Montreal. They already have 2 established center backs on their roster, whereas the consensus amongst this panel is that Montreal does not. And therefore, that puts LAFC in a much stronger position to select a center back as opposed to a team that needs a center back to be their starter. I don't disagree with you that bringing a defender in from the draft, it's a different type of position. It's a little bit easier to translate and move into the professional ranks. But if you don't have an existing player that occupies that slot, it's a different calculus.
I think he's a great player, but playing in the Ivy League is not going to prepare you for playing against Joseph Martinez in Atlanta United.
To be fair, what is in college soccer, though? Is the ACC any better than preparing you to play Joseph Martinez?
But to depend on him or to think that he can make that step to be a starter right away, I think that's a leap that's a little too big. I'm not saying that they won't take him with this pick. I actually agree that they should. But to expect him to be able to make that transition, I agree with Ali. I think he'd look in the international market for
I'm going to jump in real quick here because Minnesota United is apparently sniffing around the Montreal draft table. Let's go back to Philly. We've got some news for you.
We have a trade to announce involving Minnesota United and the Montreal Impact. The Impact have traded the 7th pick in the 2018 MLS Super Draft to Minnesota United for $150,000 of targeted allocation money. And with the 7th pick of the first round of the 2018 MLS Super Draft, Minnesota United select from Indiana University and a member of Generation Adidas, forward Mason Toye.
The New England Revolution are now on the clock.
Mason Toye came out as a freshman out of Indiana where he led the Hoosiers in goals. 6'3", 190. He is a physical specimen. You can see there, those legs remind me a little bit of Thierry Henry. 10 goals, 2 assists in his first year. First team all Big Ten. He's been with the U.S. U20s in camp, the U19s too with Brad Friedel. Thought he might go to New England with these picks afterwards. You see they have back-to-back in 8 and 9. He's a little bit raw, though, Doyle. He quit soccer at one point, actually, to focus on basketball.
Yeah, he's a multi-sport athlete, but he plays the game with a certain amount of grace for a big guy. And this goes back to what they did last year when picking Abu Danladi. Adrian Heath said, the plan, year 1, get him some minutes, year 2, starter, year 3, star, sell him. So now they already have Abu Danladi's heir in Mason Toye, and they're going to get him some minutes in year 1, and they're going to try to groom him into a starter in year 2. And by the way, Toye is the one member of Generation Adidas who is a domestic player, so this doesn't burn an international roster slot for Minnesota. This isn't a need pick for them. This is a best value pick.
Heath, a pretty good track record with developing young, talented strikers. Kyle Larin in Orlando. Dom Dwyer before him. And then Danladi last year. This is also one of the youngest players available. I think 19 years old.
I think he is the youngest, yeah.
There you go. So you want to be able to get talent, as Ali said. This is a talent pick, top pick.
Is he a striker at number 9?
Well, whether he's a striker or a winger, I think that will sort itself out. I think that one of the things that I would have, I'm not saying, I'm sure Minnesota they've done their homework, they know who they are, they know who they want to be, but they need to be in the playoffs. And so sometimes for the teams that haven't made the playoffs in the previous year, you want to acquire players that can help you today. And so I think one of the questions that they're going to have to answer is, does this guy, listen, he's a guy for tomorrow, but can he be a guy for today?
All right, back-to-back picks here at 8 and 9 for the New England Revolution. Just to remind you here, $150K in TAM going from Minnesota to Montreal for this pick. Remy Gard trading both of his first-round picks so far. New England, though, 8 and 9, and Brad Friedel is the new boss. Hired in November, he had a long, decorated career as a goalkeeper. He spoke to us the other day. He said, don't look into the fact I'm a goalkeeper. every single minute I spent on the training pitch with Tottenham, with the US U20s, with everybody, I was a field coach. I'm ready to do this job. How does he change this team, Doyle?
It remains to be seen. Given his background in the English game, you have to wonder if maybe they'll be a little bit more direct than they've been at times over the last few years. They certainly went out and got a big physical presence for defensive midfielder, which is something they've been lacking in Zahibo. But the question remains, up top, is Juan Agudelo a number 9? We've been asking it for 8 years now. I think he's one of the most talented forwards in the league, but he only rarely plays forward. And I mean, that's one question. The other question is Lee Nguyen. Lee Nguyen asked for a trade this offseason, and Brad Friedel has said we are not going to give that to him. So there are a lot of problems.
Brad Friedel said there's no way we're moving Lee Nguyen. That came from on high, Ali. How do you negotiate these sort of new era of MLS where these trade discussions become public?
Yeah, I mean, it happens in professional sports. So you have to, that. I think from day one, you've just got to be open and honest with all your players, whether that's the minute they walk in the door or whether that's the minute they sign a new contract. You just need to be honest with your players in terms of what the expectations are, what happens in every relationship, whether it's GM and player or GM and coach or coach and player, or whether it's with your wife or with your significant other. There are always rocky points where there's uncertainty, where someone on the other side is thinking a different way. It's tough, but you manage through those.
All right, the pick is in. Number 8, New England. We will see who they take. Headed to the podium right now.
With the 8th pick of the first round of the 2018 MLS Super Draft, the New England Revolution select from Western Michigan University defender Brandon Bai.
The New England Revolution are now on the clock.
Hugs all around for Brandon Bai, Western Michigan product. Spent 4 years there. 12 goals, 7 assists as a senior. He played forward in college. He was a goal scorer and a productive one at that. At the next level, though, looks like he will be a defender. Had 2 PKs he gave him the combine. So rough start, but right back. Is that what we're thinking here?
Yeah, like most attackers who come out of very direct programs, and that's what Western Michigan was. He projects better as a fullback than he does as a pure attacker, and you could see why when you watched him go on the attack and on the overlap in the combine. The kid has jets. He gets forward. He tested out as the best all-around athlete in the draft, but it's going to be a project. Brad Friedel is going to have to be committed to developing him over the next year and a half.
Yeah, Brandon Bai is a piece. He is not the entire puzzle, guys. So take me through this starting lineup as it currently stands for New England.
Well, first of all, Weeby, I love that Brad Friedel is saying, trying to convince people he's not a goalkeeper. I've had $1 for every time a goalkeeper tried to tell me he was a field player. But when you look at this lineup, Bobby, you'll see a lot of similar pieces for me, attacking wingers. But the one that is new here, right here, let's draw him up, Zahibo. We talked to Jay Heaps last year, and he was saying, since they lost Jermaine Jones, they've really lacked that piece in the middle. They're hoping this guy can maybe make the difference.
You put me on the spot about Kyle Larin. How are you feeling about this one? You confident?
Actually, I'm not confident. I think, but when I talked about them having too many pieces, this is what I could see happening. If Lee Nguyen does move, in comes Fagundes, who shouldn't be on the bench, obviously. Too much talent for that. He swings out here. Rowe steps into the middle of midfield. Attacking talent. This guy's been underrated, emerging with the U.S. men's national team. This is what I'm talking about with just a cluttered attack. I actually think in some ways Friedel would be better off moving a piece, and Lee Nguyen is the one with the most value.
The problem with Zahibo is that Agudelo, Fagundes, Caldwell, Rowe, they see the game in a certain way. They like short passes. They like combinations. I'm not sure Zahibo can do that. So you want to bring in the muscle, but if he doesn't see the game in the same way as the other guys, who knows? But I'll tell you, I'm looking forward to the Lee Nguyen saga. We don't have much of this in MLS. We don't have many guys fighting over contracts like this. So clearly Brad Friedel's stressing, but for the drama of it, I'm kind of stoked.
Actually, I think Brad Friedel's not stressing at all. I don't think they're very worried about this one. Lee Nguyen, one of the most productive 10s in the league, though. 11 goals, 15 assists last year. When you navigate this, when you see how they moved it around, Doyle, I mean, that makes sense. You love Kellen Rowe.
I do love Kellen Rowe, and I think it's probably time to put the game at his feet, so to speak, in that number 10 role. And now is probably the time to sell on Lee Nguyen. He's 31 years old in his best years. I mean, I still think he has good years ahead, but his best years are probably behind him, and there is a market out there for Lee Nguyen. And given that Brad Friedel has been pretty explicit about wanting to develop young American players, wanting to have a younger, more energetic roster, I don't understand why you would sit on him. I don't understand why you wouldn't make the move if there are takers out there.
Well, he's a really good player. He's been...
Not if you sit in the stands because he won't play him.
He's been an under 10 player for a while, and what you don't want to do is you don't want to set precedent as well. As much as a player gives his word when he signs a contract, you have a commitment to that player as well. And so, I'm not privy to all the different closed-door conversations with regard to Lee and with the organization, but from all my experiences, that club is usually fairly direct in terms of what their expectations are. So, should be interesting.
You talked about young American players, Doyle, and we're talking about Kellen Rowe, years into his deal, maybe getting the opportunity to play his best position. Brad Friedel spent time with the U.S. U20s. He told us in an interview down at the Combine that he believes in those players. He wants to bring them through. It won't just be about high-profile signings, but when you hear that, Kaylin, what do you think? How difficult is that to actually bring young American players into the fold to develop them?
Well, it's important because when you look at even the last cycle for the U.S. men's national team, if you wait too long on a guy like Kellen Rowe because he's been on the bench or hasn't gotten opportunities, you might miss out on a talent and some of the best years a player has to offer. So getting him on the field, I think, is a priority. Fagundes, Nemeth, they've got a lot of similar pieces, so I think to Ali's point, they just want to make sure they get value, the most value for whichever piece they do move on from. And they've shown that. They moved Kai Kamara. They're not afraid to make a big move. And Juan Agudelo will now get his chance to lead the line.
Well, let's get out to Philadelphia. They have the number 9 pick, the New England Revolution, do back-to-back. Let's see who they took.
With the 9th pick of the first round of the 2018 MLS Super Draft, the New England Revolution select from Grand Canyon University forward Mark Segbers.
Real Salt Lake are now on the clock.
University of Wisconsin, that's who produced Mark Segbers. 4 years there, 5 goals, 7 assists in his senior season, 21 starts, surely benefiting off playing with Chris Mueller, but quite the player himself. Second team All-American, 5'9", 158, probably projects more as a winger. Bobby, what did you see from this guy?
This has me stoked. Another guy just like Brandon Bye, very similar players, converted to outside back. But this just shows the direction that Brad Friedel wants to take this organization. 2 strikers he's going to try and slide in somewhere in the back line, probably right back. It just shows the intention that Friedel is approaching the season with. A little attacking flair, a little energy coming from the back.
Right back is to New England as winger is to Minnesota United at this point, I guess. The idea is to collect as many right backs as possible. Yep. I mean, Segbers is a really good player. But like you said, he's basically the same player as Bye, and basically,
exactly the same player.
So I don't really understand the idea of sort of doubling down on that type of guy, unless one of them is trade bait.
Well, outside back's been ignored in this league, Ali, so it's nice to see some emphasis put on it.
Right back has been a sore spot around this league, but the refs have Andrew Farrell, who wasn't great last year, but
they just re-signed, by the way.
Who they just re-signed. And then they take 2 more. It's like, I don't get it.
But he can play in the middle. Farrell can play in the middle as well. Maybe that's the idea of moving him inside.
Not well.
And this kid has also played, he's a winger by trade. So what's to expect that he's not going to be a winger at the professional level?
Teal Bunbury re-signed as well. I'm going to throw something out here, guys. We've got 3 Generation Adidas picks taken, 4 still on the board. Is that surprising that they've not dropped, but we're 9 picks in and there's still more than half the class remaining? Why might that be?
You know, we talked a little bit about earlier in the show in terms of every club has a different opinion about the exact same player. So it's really uncertain in terms of, where these players are going because everyone's got a different opinion.
All right, let's get out to Philadelphia. Susanna Collins is standing by with Brad Friedel, the head coach of the Revs.
Brad, your first Super Draft as an MLS head coach. I'm curious, what has this whole experience been like today for you?
Oh, it's been fun. It is a little different from the world that I lived in before, but we had done all of our homework, and actually we got the first 2 names on the list that we wanted. We wanted both Mark and Brandon. A lot of pace, a lot of athleticism, the young players, and they provide cover all along the right-hand side, so we're very pleased.
You've talked about the importance of developing young American talent. You now have 2 more on your roster. How do you see them fitting in with the squad that you have so far?
Well, like any player coming into the professional game for the first time, it'll be an adjustment period for them. It would be difficult for them at first, but like I said, they have a lot of athleticism and a lot of pace about them, so hoping they can adapt quickly. We've just signed Isaac Enking, another young player from our own academy, so we're going to have some youth and experience there, and hopefully we can cause a lot of teams some problems.
Brad, thanks so much for the time.
Thank you.
RSL on the clock, as you can see before that pick, guys. He's talking about young American players, and I'm sitting here thinking about TAM and how that impacts those young players, how it may change their opportunities. Ali, when that came into the league, what was that a signal to? To whom? To which players? What do young Americans have to think about when they sign?
I think, no matter the mechanism, I think when more money gets injected into the system, generally players are excited about that. There's opportunity. You improve the quality of your roster. I think that the league, a lot of times what goes noticed is the injection of money at the top, which is TAM and things like that, and you bring in those higher priced players. But also, the league is also injecting money into youth development, and a lot of these young players are seeing opportunities that they otherwise may have not. So, at the end of the day, they say you get what you pay for, but there's a lot of opportunity to strengthen your team, and it gives players the promise of maybe bigger contracts.
MLS making unprecedented investment in youth development. Salt Lake, other teams like that, just called a timeout, I'm told, is a good example of that. FC Dallas, but TAM is going to mostly foreign players right now. It's not being distributed evenly across a lot of the American players. I do think it is an interesting talking point from the standpoint of, are we investing in that moneyed part of the roster to American players? I'm not quite sure, especially with clubs that are getting this injection. Most of them right now are looking to go to Central and South America to spend.
But I think, but as as an organization in the club, I think you try to acquire players without bias, and that if you have a pool of money, you want to get the best player for your club that fits your club, that can add value, that can get you into the playoffs and maybe win an MLS Cup. Doesn't matter whether they're a domestic or an international. Now, yes, we want players that also not only represent our local community, but also represent our country. But there's no I would say there's no silver bullet. When you look at the composition of a roster, it's all over. It's all over the globe, all over the map, whether there's homegrown players or whether there's international ones.
TAM and DP don't mean on the back end of their career anymore. Doyle, now it's more often the front end. We saw Josue Colman with Orlando. We look around RSL. Jefferson Savarino is one of those guys. These young South Americans that are coming in, it's going to change the league.
It is going to change the league, and it's just good cap management as well, because a young DP like Colman or Savarino costs you $150,000 against that cap. And you're suddenly saving, that's almost $400,000 that you save if you're a GM and you have to manage that budget somehow. And that allows you to maybe go out and get a veteran center back, and that allows you to maybe address a need at D-mid. And if you have TAM, you can go out and sign a player. This is what the Sounders did last year. They went out and signed Kelvin Leerdam at right back, and they paid him $1 more than the maximum salary, so that they would then have the ability to use TAM to pay his cap hit down to $150,000. And that's a way to create more cap space as well.
I need to point something out here, man. We talk about TAM, we talk about these exciting new players coming into the league, but you cannot win in this league without domestic players that you can trust. You need good American talent who knows the league, who knows the different parts about MLS, the travel, and this is where you get it, right? You need the guys from 150 to 250 in your salary budget who are American, who you can count on to win in this league, and that's what we can never forget. For as exciting as these new players are, you can never undervalue those nuances and those intangibles.
I think you gotta, yes and yes. There is, like, you look at the composition of a roster, it's all over the map. You need a little bit from every bucket. And, we've talked a little bit about American players and is that really touching the TAM? I remember one time there was a player that came into the league. He was a Generation Adidas player, then worked his way up, and then all of a sudden, I offered him a TAM contract, and that's Dax McCarty. So there is that opportunity for American players. Really, these clubs are doing the best jobs they can to strengthen their club in any way they can, and from a cap management perspective, but also at the same time, they've got to manage their budget. To some respect, I agree with you in terms of the bedrock of your club, at least from a 34-game season perspective. You need those guys that are between 150 and call it 250, because those are the guys that are going to show up on Saturday every week. Exactly. That's important, but it's very, very important to have these TAM guys. You need guys that are very, very special, and sometimes those special guys, it's difficult to get because of the price.
If you're looking at the model, Toronto FC.
Yep.
They've used every mechanism possible. They've gone the DP route. They've used North Americans. I think 8 of the 11 starters at MLS Cup were North American players. They've used the free agency with Drew Moore. They've used the draft with Bono. So it really is about how you build a roster out from all these different elements.
Either way, I just think you've got to maximize in every single bucket. Homegrown player, draft, re-entry, expansion, TAM, designated player, the whole gambit. You've got to get value.
I got to jump in, Ellie. That is every bucket. And we've got some news coming from Philly. You saw the timeout by Real Salt Lake. If you've been watching, you probably know what that means. Let's go out to the draft floor.
We have a trade to announce involving Real Salt Lake and the Chicago Fire. Real Salt Lake have traded the 10th pick in the MLS Super Draft to the Chicago Fire for $85,000 of allocation money. And with the 10th pick of the first round of the 2018 MLS Super Draft, Chicago Fire select from Syracuse University and a member of Generation Adidas midfielder Mo Adams.
FC Dallas are now on the clock.
Mo Adams getting his dap there. Came out as a sophomore out of Cuse. Didn't make it to the Combine, though, until the very final day. Had some visa issues that held him back. He trained this summer with Sporting Kansas City. He played with Reading United, so Philly knew about him as well in PDL. He also had stints as a academy player with Nottingham Forest in Derby County. He comes in probably one of those deep-lying central midfield spots. I look at the depth chart and I see Bastian Schweinsteiger, I see Dax McCarty, and I don't see a whole lot behind them.
Yeah, now he's behind them. He's a destroyer who will sit deep in the central midfield. Maybe if you pair him with Schweinsteiger, he pushes forward a little bit and becomes kind of a box-to-box type of player. But I think in his heart, he's a number 6. He's a guy who wants to get out there and destroy the game. He keeps it very, very simple on the ball, which is near and dear to Bobby's heart at that position.
Love that. No, you're exactly right. This is a pick that has me really excited. Mo Adams has all the raw tools for him now to go and play behind Schweinsteiger, behind Dax McCarty, and learn the flow of a game, learn how to organize players, his center of gravity, his movement, defending, getting down. I'm just excited about this pick. Most of these picks, I'm like, that might work. This one will be good for the kid, good for the team.
Chicago needed depth in the midfield. Yep. They lost Juninho. Alvarez goes down to Houston. Mihalovic, Dalou, both out with ACL injuries. So they need players who can play minutes early on.
All right, by my count, that's been 5 trades and 10 picks in this 2018 Adidas MLS Super Draft. Susanna Collins is standing by with Mike Pecky to explain RSL's side.
All right, Mike, you just traded your pick to Chicago. What was behind that, and what are you looking to accomplish here today?
Well, what was behind is that we feel that we got our number 1 and number 2 pick already. Aaron Herrera, who we got from our homegrown, is a top 3 pick in this draft this year. Corey Badd is our first-round draft pick. So we were looking for 1 or 2 players that if they fell through to our position, we would have taken, and they were drafted already. So for us, it's getting a little bit of money, a general allocation money, and we're very happy with Corey Badd and Aaron Herrera.
Well, Craig Weibel has said that these young players will get the opportunity to play, but they have to earn it. How do they earn it?
They earn it by showing up every day and showing that they're their best player at that position. It's not rocket science. It's as simple as that. So, like I said, in our 2 players, Corey Baird and Aaron Herrera, we feel that they can come in and compete, and they're definitely big players for us for the future.
Mike, thanks for the time.
Thank you very much.
RSL trusts the young players, no doubt about that. On the clock now, FC Dallas, they do the same. Let's go right back out to Philadelphia for that 11th pick.
With the 11th pick of the first round of the 2018 MLS Super Draft presented by Adidas, FC Dallas select from Wake Forest University and a member of Generation Adidas, midfielder Ima Tumasi.
The San Jose Earthquakes are now on the clock.
Emma Tumwasi out of Wake Forest came out as a sophomore here, Generation Adidas, the second right to dream player taken so far in this draft. Also from Accra, 10 goals, 7 assists, first team All ACC as a sophomore. Another winger / forward. He's got pace. He can get inside. He's a good player. Bobby had a little bit of a rough combine.
He had a rough combine, but a very similar player to Atua Hene. Dallas is just betting that one of these two pans out. But the other part about taking a winger, too, it's easier to come in and make an impact late in the game as a winger. You can come in 85th minute. Both Tumasi and Atua Hene can come in, run at players, scare the outside backs. Two good picks by FC Dallas.
They got to be pumped up to be together as well. Let's go back out to Philadelphia. Susanna Collins is with the Chicago Fire's Nelson Rodriguez.
All right, Nelson, you already have John Vaccaro. You trade up to get Mo Adams. What about these two players are so special and are a good fit for the Chicago Fire?
We believe that they embrace a football lifestyle. We believe that they fit into the type of football that we're trying to play, and we're very impressed with their character.
You re-signed Bastian Schweinsteiger. You have an incredible midfield with Dax McCarty. How do you feel like these guys are going to be able to contribute right away?
Well, look, let's temper expectations. They're still young players. They'll need time to acclimate to the new speed of the game, but we think that they're very qualified players today with a great upside, and I have great confidence in our coaching staff to sort it all out.
Can you give us an update on Juan Quintero?
We have a habit of not discussing players who are under contract to another team.
Understandable. Thanks so much for your time, Nelson.
Thank you.
All right, if you need the update on Juan Quintero, they've been chasing the Colombian number 10 for what seems like a couple years now, at least not publicly. Nelson Rodriguez said, no, we don't comment on that. But rumors are he may go to River Plate. But the Fire, so far active in this super draft. Right now on the clock is San Jose. Bobby, you know this new coach well, Michael Stara.
Yeah, I talked to some friends in Sweden, and they spoke very highly of him. Said players like him. He plays a good brand of soccer, passing, ball on the ground, good organization. He'll be a good addition to the league.
He tends to prefer a 4-3-3. I went over some old games of his. I did some research, talked to a couple people. He has tended to prefer a 4-3-3, which makes it interesting that they traded Darwin Seren this morning, because Seren would give them maybe a starter, but definitely depth at that spot. It maybe means that they are kind of doubling down on last year's first-round pick, Jackson Ewell, a kid who I like a lot.
Hopefully.
And, yeah,
we can hope so.
Yeah, you're a big fan
My
of his.
top 10 of
Hold on,
24
let's look
24.
back to 2017 as well here. As we talk about San Jose, this is a team that didn't make the playoffs, had a little bit, snuck in at the final second there, but they lost the job in the coaching staff. Chris Leach back up to the front office. Michael Stara comes in. Kalen, Wondolowski's not going to be there forever. They've got to start to move on, got to start to find that identity. Marco Arena gone, Seren gone. They're moving on and quickly.
Well, I'd be careful moving on from Chris Wondolowski.
I'm not saying move on.
Do you think he starts the entire season, or do you think a new coach wants a different kind of player?
They're paying him to start the entire season.
They're paying Simon Dawkins to start the entire season for the last couple of years.
Why you gotta bring Simon Dawkins into it, man?
Your favorite
Bet
player
against
of all
Chris
time.
Wondolowski at your own peril. But when I look back at last season, Jackson Ewell and Lima, two young players, one through homegrown, Lima now with the national team. Jackson Ewell got a lot of minutes for a rookie last year. This team's not afraid to play young players. I would expect that to continue, partly based on a need to, but also wanting to invest in some of these young players.
All right, you see the draft table here. San Jose have their pick in. Let's go back out to Philadelphia to see who they took at number 12.
With the 12th pick of the first round of the 2018 MLS Super Draft, the San Jose Earthquakes select from Florida International University defender Paul Mare.
Sporting Kansas City are now on the clock.
Paul Murray taken with the 12th pick here by San Jose. The preacher's caller apparently in Matt Doyle. Here's a guy who played 4 years in college, Newberry, then 3 years at FIU. He's got American parents, so no need to mess with the green card. There are 8 goals, 6 assists his senior season, but attacking is probably not where he ends up at the next level.
Yeah, I think he's fullback depth for this team. They needed a little something. I would have thought more left fullback rather than right fullback, but Murray's a good player. He finds good spots. He's not afraid to get on the ball in tough spots. I do question whether he's an MLS caliber athlete, especially if you play him out wide.
What's wrong? You have to be athletic to play in this league? You saying us slow guys can't do it?
I'm saying Dave Goss came close to knocking you off in the fitness.
That's fair. That's fair. Yeah, you're right. Murray is more, he's just a good soccer player. He's the kind of guy you can put anywhere on the field and he'll get the job done. He's good with both feet, good striker of the ball, good crosser. I hope he plays right back to the next level, but he could play anywhere.
We're getting to a point where you guys are saying this is depth, this is a backup, this is second, third on the depth chart. Yeah. I mean, 12 on? Are we past the point where they're difference makers? Because I still count 2 Generation Adidas guys on the board, and we've still got 1 signed senior left to go in John Gallagher.
Last year, Jack Elliott went the 77th pick to Philadelphia Union, and he started 29 matches last year. Yeah. So you can find guys late in the draft. Teams were passing at that point, by the way. It just takes, now it's really seeing who's done their homework. It's not just about the top guys in the first 10. Now you're starting to see who's really been out there.
We've seen good players go in the teens, even this decade. Tim Parker was like the 15th pick. Roldan was 16th. And by the way, there's a Roldan still on the board. Dom Dwyer was the 16th pick way back in 2013, I want to say. So it's happened. But if you're relying on finding a starter in the teens in the super draft, you're behind the times, I would say.
All right, here we go. We are 12 picks through, as you said, into the teens. Sporting KC on the clock at 13. So far, 5 Generation Adidas signings. Number 1, João Moutinho to LAFC, and of course, Tristan Blackman went to the black and gold as well. I want to get back into Dallas here real quick, because I talk about Generation Adidas, and we see the tweets there. People like these young men. There's no doubt that they interview well. There's no doubt that there have been some very good Right to Dream performers come into the league. When you pick up 2 players like this with similar backgrounds, probably spent a lot of time around each other as they came up and have similar roles, why would you do that, Ali? What do you think FC Dallas are thinking here?
Well, I think a lot of times, you're trying to make an educated decision about how these amateur players can acclimate themselves into the next level. And so when you can pick a player and select a player that's been in a number of different places and has had success at each different place, then you can make a reasonable inference that they may be able to acclimate themselves in a more effective way than maybe a player that's lived in the same hometown for his entire career. And so in a lot of different ways, you really want to try to minimize all the variables, and that variable about can this player come into Dallas, play on our team, live in a new market, all those things associated with professional soccer. I think if they've done it already, that gives you a little bit of confidence.
All right, 13th pick is in. Let's head back out to Philadelphia and see who Sporting Kansas City took with their first-round selection.
With the 13th pick of the first round of the 2018 MLS Super Draft, Sporting Kansas City select from Butler University goalkeeper Eric Dick.
Atlanta United FC are now on the clock.
Eric Dick does not lack for size. 6'5", the goalkeeper out of Butler. 9 shutouts his senior year. He was a starter full-time for basically 3 years at Butler. He had some first-team All-American credits to his name. Big East Conference Goalkeeper of the Year as a senior, and I think, Bobby, pretty much consensus, he was the best goalkeeper in this draft and the first off the board.
Yeah, big body, a good shot stopper. When you're a big goalie like that, it just makes your job so much easier because you don't always need to make a reaction save or agility save. You literally come out and just make yourself big, and for younger goalies who don't necessarily have the positioning or the timing right, to be big and make it easier on yourself is an important component.
He's the #1 at Swope Park Rangers as of right now, I would say. Yeah. He's not going to displace D'Amelia, but it's a good value pick long term if they can develop him over the next couple of years. And you saw on the highlight film right there, big goalkeepers tend to struggle to get down to the ground and make those tough saves, especially if they're going to their right or their left. Dick can make those saves. Yep. He has some agility for a guy his size.
All right, Atlanta next on the clock. They got Julian Gressel, the Rookie of the Year last year. We'll see what they do here. But it's a team that has invested, as we said, in many, many different areas. This one worked out for them. Number 8 overall last year, Julian Gressel standing by with Susanna Collins.
Julian, it was only a year ago that you were up on that stage. What kind of memories are flooding back for you? What has this day been like watching this on stage?
It's definitely been different. I mean, last year I was really nervous and really anxious to see where I would go. And everything went by kind of in a blur and really quick. And today it's really nice that I got to come back and really just take it all in from kind of like behind the scenes and see how those guys actually look and feel right now.
Your team, Atlanta United, on the clock, about to make a pick. What are you expecting them to do here? Do you have any favorites in mind, perhaps?
Not really. I mean, I don't really know what they're going to do. You know, I think we have a good squad already. So I don't know if they need to add any more like big time players. But it's a thing. The club will make the right choice in the end of it. And I mean, there's still another German guy out there. I've kind of become friends with him a bit, so we'll see who they pick now. But I'm excited to see who my teammate's going to be.
Julian, enjoy the rest of your day. Thanks for the time.
Thank you.
That other German guy is Gordon Wild, one of the 2 Generation Adidas players still on the board right now. Is Gordon Wild a possibility here? Could they go this route?
They could. I find it hard to believe that they're going to spend an international roster slot on a guy who really didn't look great all season and didn't test well athletically and didn't particularly play well at the combine. So I'm hard pressed to imagine this happening. If you look at that roster, the spot where they need depth is right back. But thanks to the Revs, going full on monopoly, there are no right backs worth taking at the 14th pick. I don't know. I'm kind of at a loss here, guys.
Center back, right back. All I know is if they take Gordon Wild, Almiron's head will explode. Gordon Wild, a very good player, but very direct. He's not looking to combine in the middle third. He's not looking to combine in the final third. He's putting his head down, and he's going for goal. So a good player, but not right for Atlanta.
I'm looking at their depth chart. They don't have any holes, but they are going to take a player here with the 14th pick. Let's go back out to Philly and see who he is.
With the 14th pick of the first round of the 2018 MLS Super Draft, Atlanta United select from the University of Notre Dame forward John Gallagher.
Minnesota United FC are now on the clock.
John Gallagher out of Notre Dame spent 4 years there, 39 goals and 15 assists over the course of them. He had a good senior and junior season, 13 goals his senior year, 14 goals his junior year. He was first team All-ACC in both instances. He's got some Irish blood. He traveled with Juventus, Marseille, Blackburn Rovers, and Newcastle in his day. He is the last signed senior to be drafted, Bobby. What are they getting in John Gallagher, Atlanta United?
Mostly a goal scorer. At the combine, he played a box-to-box. He played out wide, but that's just not the right spot for him at the next level. He's got to be a goal scorer. Put him in the box a little bit like Martinez does. He's really a poacher a lot of the time. So it might fit to have all those assist men around him and just put Gallagher in the box, who's got good movement and he's a good finisher.
I don't see Gallagher as a Martinez type player at all. Martinez runs the line off the shoulder of the defenders. He's not a 1v1 player. I mean, I think didn't have more than like 2 or 3 completed dribbles all season. Gallagher is a guy who gets the ball on his foot, looks at the defender ahead of him and says, I'm going to beat you. I am going to skin you.
Quick note here, Atlanta 2 just got started, so this may be another one where you're saying, hey, USL path to MLS.
What I liked about the Gressler interview is he's like, yo, we're good. Like, where do you have a hole? And now this is the way the league has changed, that you can be a first-round draft pick, and he's going to be behind a homegrown kid. Andrew Carlton should be ahead of this kid right away, especially looking at the forward line. He's the one that, Petke talked about, oh, we've signed homegrown players already. I think some of that's a little bit of puffing your chest to the academy, but in this case, Atlanta United falls in that same boat.
All right, let's get to Minnesota, who acquired the 15th pick here in that trade earlier on today. The Loons, look, their expansion season did not match that of Atlanta United. You can see here their current 11, as Kalen and Bobby see it. They've got work to do. They say they like their back line guys, but goals allowed was a big problem for them in 2017.
This is a team I'm way higher on than all you guys are. I like this squad, strangely. I thought Ibsen was better than most other people did. Cronin is a proven winner in this league. And really, who knows what you're going to get out of these front four? That could turn into be one of the best front fours in the league. For me, it's got to be center back, Kalen. They've got to. I mean, maybe Boxall's a good enough player, but that's really the one weakness in the squad.
Well, they've also got Toye, remember, from IU, just drafted earlier in this one. Dunladi, for me, too dangerous to be stuck out on the wing. This is what I was talking about. Can him and Ramirez find that partnership? Finley always better on the right-hand side, getting to that end line, serving balls either back across the grain to Dunladi or Ramirez getting to the near post, trying to finish those off. This team has a lot of work to do still, but they've made some nice pieces already. Andrew, let's see where they're going next.
Yeah, the pick is in. Number 15 coming up here from Philadelphia. Let's see who Minnesota United took.
With the 15th pick of the first round of the 2018 MLS Super Draft, Minnesota United select from Dartmouth College defender Wyatt Omsberg.
The New York Red Bulls are now on the clock.
Wyatt Omsberg, we talked about them maybe taking him earlier on with that 5th pick. They traded out of it. Looks like they got the guy they wanted, a 4-year starter at Dartmouth in the Ivy League. He's from Maine. Not a ton of MLS prospects come out of there, but this 6'4", 180-pound center back has really showed well, and he's got a lot of allies in his camp. 2002 first overall draft pick, Chris Bondi recruited this guy. Says he's great. Says he's going to be a difference maker in this league. Compares him to Matt Hedges, as does Wyatt Omsberg. This looks like a pretty savvy moving around from Minnesota.
Yeah, tip of the hat to Manny Lagos, because I think they crushed this draft. They traded down and got Toye, who is the youngest and maybe highest upside domestic player in the draft. Then they got Omsberg, who is, I think, consensus the number 2 center back in the draft and could maybe walk in there and be a starter, especially if they're willing to put Calvo out at left back. And by the way, this was the oldest team in the league last year. Oldest team in the league as an expansion team, and suddenly they have 2 guys, one is 8 or 19 and the other's 21, who could maybe walk in there and play 1,000, 1,500 minutes. This is what they needed. Good job to Minnesota United.
The last Maine great player, Roger Levesque, Seattle legend. Shout out to Roger. I doubt he's watching.
Who's going to pull the celebration? Can I get out of frame here?
I'm glad I bought low. I'm very glad I bought low because that team just got even better.
Yeah, I really like Wyatt. I think talk to players. I talked to Jeff Curtin, a player who I think is now representing him, but a center back who knows a thing or two about it, that family as well. He speaks about this kid's left foot, size, dangerous in the air. He's going to have a burn bomb-like ability in the air. Minnesota United looking to manufacture goals on set pieces might be a good option. This kid can really bang.
One thing that's changing about the league, too, is you now need center backs who can break the lines. You need center backs who can pick up their head and find the forward checking back, to find the midfielder getting in between the lines and not coming back between the center backs. Omsberg does that very well.
Let's get to another Ivy Leaguer. That would be Jesse Marsh of the New York Red Bulls. He is with Susanna Collins in Philadelphia. Oh, excuse me, he's at the draft table. Red Bulls here, figuring out who they're going to take with the 16th pick. They've done well in the draft. They've done well with the homegrowns. They've got a couple signings already this season. Ali, where do you think they go with a pick like this? How do they look at Red Bulls and Red Bulls 2 and fit this into the mix?
Well, they've got a couple different tools because they've got a first team and they have a second team. I think what's most important for the club is they're going to try to find a player that can actually fit the way they want to play. It won't be position specific. I think they'll be looking for there's a number of different positions that they can look to strengthen, but because they have two different teams, they're going to be looking to just trying to find the best football player.
There's a profile though, yeah?
Absolutely.
They've gone young, they won athletic, they're going straight toward that high pressure system with both feet, to be honest with you.
Well, yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, they want to win though as well. So yes, they have some younger players and there's a certain defined style, but they're just trying to find the best player that they can so that can help them win games.
Brian White went to Duke. Scored 10 goals, 3 assists for Duke last year as a forward, second attacker kind of guy. Was the PDL MVP playing for New York Red Bulls U23s this summer. Had 17 goals in like 15 games. He's one of those sort of all-around attackers. You could line him up anywhere in a 4-2-3-1, anywhere in maybe a 4-2-2-2. They're familiar with him. He's from North Jersey. This is the most natural pick of the draft. They have to take him.
He's definitely a consideration. They know him very well. I mean, the one thing that the club has is they have a very rich academy. And so they have a little bit more latitude in terms of the type of player or the quality of player that they're selecting, because they may have other players in their academy that are already in that pipeline, and that influences who they're going to select in the draft.
We're talking a lot about USL to MLS. They're spending those first few days in USL. Bobby, you have experience in that league. Is it difficult to make that jump? How do these Red Bulls products have to navigate that sort of journey?
The biggest difference is physicality. If you watch a USL game, it's good soccer. A lot of those guys can ball. The combinations are good. The biggest difference, as is always true when you move up levels, it's just a little bit faster. And it sounds like it shouldn't be that hard, but if you go from one speed to another, it's a world of difference. So they're often good enough soccer players. It's just being able to do it. It's a little more physical and just literally, it's just a touch. It's not that much, but a touch is often enough.
Right now, a timeout for New York Red Bulls. Perhaps a trade in the works here. We will see what happens with them. When you look at their offseason, Kalen, Sasha Kleshtin out. That's the second year in a row you've seen the captain traded. They've gone young. Tyler Adams expected to make the jump. What do you expect from the Red Bulls in 2018?
Well, Sasha Kleshtin leaving this year, and then Dax McCarty leaving the year prior. So the Red Bulls have really invested a lot into Tyler Adams and Sean Davis to step up and fill those holes. I think they're ready for it. I think this is a smart move. Now, they put a lot also on now Tommy Redding, who's come up from Orlando City for Sasha Kleshtin and Rivas. I think they both end up in the starting lineup. I think a formation change may need to happen to accommodate that, but I'd be interested to hear what Ali says about this Sasha move. Did it surprise you, and how do you think it will affect not just the team on the field, but the locker room?
Well, I think that whenever there is a big presence on the club, within the club, and there's a trade or a transfer that's involved, it has the tendency to shake a club. It'll be the coaching staff's opportunity or responsibility to manage that process, and that'll start from day one once the trade happens, and that will bleed into the preseason. They do have a lot of young, newer players, I think, that can really help the club and do well. Sasha was a coach on the field and in the locker room. And he had he earned the respect of his teammates. He earned the respect of the coaching staff and the organization. So his leaving is a big hole or a void to fill, not just for what he provides, as a footballer, but what he provides just in terms of his personality and his leadership. Now, when a player leaves like that, it gives other guys opportunities to step up. What's Felipe going to do? What's Tyler going to do? What's Danny Royer going to do?
Let's check out the starting 11. Yeah. Speaking of those guys, you guys are standing by here, and Kaku's not there, by the way. Romero Gamara, there are rumors he may be coming in, but this is the way you see it right now.
Yeah, this is the projected 11, and mine specifically, Bobby. Now, you come across when you make a big shift in an organization, are you going to put formation first or personnel? And for me, you put the best talent on the field. You've invested in Redding, you've invested in Rivas, so you find a way to get them in there. So a little bit of a formation change where now you have Rivas and Wright Phillips up top together. Jesse Marsch tipped his hand a little bit late in games in the playoffs when they were down or needed a goal. They did play two strikers. How do you think this affects their midfield, and where do you see Adams playing in?
Dude, the Red Bulls are one of those ones where who knows what formation they're going to play. This makes as much sense as any. Having talked to Jesse about their formation, he said the main thing they're going to talk about in preseason is philosophy. Where does Tyler Adams play? who knows? That's one of the big things Jesse and U.S. Soccer have to figure out. How do you get the most out of one of your prime products?
And the question here is, where do you put Kaku? If that deal gets done, that's one of those rumored deals of a young Argentine player for the Red Bulls. They say they're close, but you got to get over the line. Speaking of another, Barco watch is on. Susanna Collins is down in Philly with Darren Eales, the president of Atlanta United.
Darren, Atlanta has one of the most dynamic attacks. You guys add another forward in John Gallagher. What was behind that pick?
Yeah, look, I mean, John, we like his work ethic as well as the fact he can score goals and also set them up. And I think his flexibility, he could play a false nine, he could play wide. He's someone I think will, he's not going to be under pressure to sort of be starting games for us. I think it gives him a chance to fit in when Tatar's got him up to speed in his system. And that flexibility and that work rate is something that we're looking for.
Well, Barco Watch was all the rage in Atlanta for the last few weeks. As you guys continue to kind of set the trend in MLS for assembling your team, how gratifying is it for you to see it paying off on the field?
Yeah, look, I mean, I think it just shows where the league's getting to now, the sort of level of players that get linked to us. Obviously, we don't comment on players who are under contract elsewhere, but I think the fact that you see these players being linked to the league is a great thing. And, we've always said it. The first year was great for us to make the playoffs, but we want to be a team that's competing for the MLS Cup, so we need to improve every transfer window, and that's what we'll try to do.
Darren, thanks so much for the time.
Thanks for that.
Playoffs not good enough for Atlanta United. They expect to be there, and they want to win MLS Cup. We'll see if they do it. We'll see if they get Barco. Let's go back out to Philadelphia. The New York Red Bulls number 16 pick is in.
With the 16th pick of the first round of the 2018 MLS Super Draft, the New York Red Bulls select from Duke University forward Brian White.
The Vancouver Whitecaps FC are now on the clock.
Took a timeout to pick the guy that Doyle said they were going to take all along. Brian White out of Duke, spent 4 years there, 10 goals, 3 assists his senior season, started 20 games for the Blue Devils, the second team All-Atlantic Coast Conference player. What'd you see in him, Doyle, that makes him such a perfect fit?
I think he's clever. I think he figures stuff out in the final third with his movement away from the ball. Not super tricky on the ball. He's not like Gallagher or Mueller in that way, but he's just a good, solid soccer player who seems to think the game. And if you're going to play a high-pressing system, if you're going to really get after teams, you got to be clever and you got to figure stuff out on the fly.
Help the folks at home understand who he might be in this system. Is there somebody on that first team right now? Is there somebody within the organization?
If they play the 4-2-2-2, which is what I think they will do, then he's Carlos Rivas' backup and the front two. He's not a number 9.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I think what's most important in that selection is the fact that they think that this guy knows their system. They had an opportunity to spend 3 months, teach him the philosophy, teach him how they want to play, and he responded really, really well. And when we talk about this draft where you have amateur players that have never played a professional game, trying to minimize that uncertainty into making a selection where there is some level of certainty is really valuable. And so selecting a guy like Brian White, who went to a great university and plays the way they want to play, can finish goals and can be athletic, I think that's valuable for the Red Bulls.
What university was that?
I think it was
It's a
Duke
great point, though, Ali.
And
Bobby, you've talked a lot about the transition into MLS. When we were coming up, I hesitate to say that.
Oh, yeah.
Back prop. You had no familiarity with a professional organization. I trained with the Galaxy maybe for a couple days during the summer with Kai Kamara, actually, but don't really understand the system. So that preseason, as you're saying, Ali, when he steps in to play in preseason, he's going to see familiar faces. He's going to understand a system. That's already a huge advantage.
And what I would say is also with those MLS clubs that have their own USL team or that have their own PDL team, a lot of times what those clubs are doing, if they're doing it the right way, is those players will not only train with the PDL team during the summer, but they're also going to train with both the USL team and the first team. So, really the first team staff's going to get an opportunity such that he had a chance to play with Sasha, with Bradley Wright Phillips, and all these other types of players.
New York Red Bulls. Big pick for them. Brian White, they are familiar with him, and the number 17 pick is in as well. Vancouver have filled out their card. Don Garber will let us know who it is.
With the 17th pick of the first round of the 2018 MLS Super Draft, the Vancouver Whitecaps select from the University of Washington defender Justin Fittis.
Sporting Kansas City are now on the clock.
Justin Fittis, defender out of Washington. Vancouver Whitecaps don't have to go very far to scout him. He is a defender that I think that's a position that they probably look to fill in this draft. It's, as we talked about, a place to get an effective player.
He's a left back, and he is a blazing fast left back. And if you look at what they lost this offseason with selling Sam Adekugbe and Jordan Harvey signing with LAFC, it was a place where they needed some depth. I don't think he comes in and starts, but he's a guy who has the physical tools, a la Jake Nerwinski, to play 1,000 minutes as a rookie in MLS.
Yep, we'll see if Fittis can do as well. Let's go back out to Philadelphia. Susanna Collins is standing by with Jesse Marsh.
Jesse, a busy day for the Red Bulls. 5 draft picks. Why was Brian White the right pick for you?
Well, we know Brian really well. He referenced in his speech that he's been with our PDL for 2 summers. He's been around our first team training. He's from New Jersey. He's from Flemington, which is actually just down the road from me in Princeton. So he's a guy we know really well. He fits the way we play. He likes the way we play. He likes the club. So we were hopeful that he would still be available at this pick, and we think that, put him into our system and some more, give him some USL matches and move him along and hope that he can have a first-team future.
Such a big day for some of these young players. Obviously, we saw the emergence of Tyler Adams last year, but we also saw the departure of Sasha Kljestan. In your mind, how important is it to be able to extract leadership qualities from these young guys?
Well, yeah, we also have a good number of veteran players that are great leaders still within our team, but when you talk about a guy like Tyler, guys like Sean Davis, Alex Mule, Aaron Long, they're good young players that also have great leadership qualities. So, our club's in a really healthy position, and so it's nice to come to these drafts and know that we don't really have that much of a need, but we're just trying to find ways to supplement our USL team and then help it grow into our MLS team.
Thanks so much for the time, Jesse.
Thank you.
All right, the Red Bulls way. Ali, when he talks about integrating this player and how he understands the system, what does Jesse Marsh mean?
I think, they have a pretty defined way of playing on the field in terms of what their game plan is. They want to attack, they want to press, and they want to suffocate their opponent. And they also need players that have the physical and mental ability to be able to execute that. And so anytime you have the opportunity to bring in a young player and get reps with him in the summer for a good 3-4 months, and he's able to kind of play on all your different platforms and succeed and do well, then you kind of, like we said, you minimize that volatility and that uncertainty. So
One of the things I want to make, some people on Twitter asking why was he not a homegrown signing. He was not a Red Bulls Academy product. He was a guy who went to a different New Jersey academy and played with the Red Bulls PDL team, which is a U23 team, which is where usually the best college players played during the summer. So he was not eligible to be signed as a homegrown by the Red Bulls. It's a distinction. You get lost in the weeds a little bit, but it's worth understanding.
All right, let's go back out to Philadelphia. Sporting KC's pick is in, the number 18.
With the 18th pick of the first round of the 2018 MLS Super Draft, Sporting Kansas City select from the University of Denver defender Graham Smith, who was unable to join us here today.
New York City FC.
Graham Smith, a center back, started his career in college at Oregon State before transferring to Denver. He was a starter for all 4 years, 6'3", 185. He's got the size. He showed well at the Combine in Sporting Kansas City. In just the last 24 hours or so, have picked up 2 young center backs. Brought in an Argentine, Amor from Vélez Sarsfield. Now they pick up Graham Smith, Bobby, here in the Super Draft.
Sporting Kansas City, probably the best center back pairing in the league. They didn't need to upgrade there, but it's a guy with upside. A center back with size, with pace, okay on the ball, but with his athleticism, you feel like in a couple years maybe he develops into a nice cultured center back.
See, I thought I had an opposite read on him. I thought he was actually pretty good on the ball for a center back, whereas his athleticism is what concerned me. He looked a little bit slow on the turn, and I mean, he's still learning the position. He was mostly a midfielder.
And on the turn's important in that high press that KC often does, so maybe that's a concern for them.
But they've used guys who aren't the most athletic center backs in the world before. So if he gets in there and he learns, but he's going to be learning at Swope Park. He's going down there with Dick, the goalkeeper they drafted at 13, and get used to that, guys, and see if you can do it at USL and impress Peter Ramiz, and then come on
Remember,
up.
Aiko Para and Matt Buesler might be getting calls up for the men's national team, so depth at center back is a priority.
All right, New York City FC, next pick is in Philadelphia. Remember, they've traded up the last 2 years. They understand first-round talent. Let's head back out to Philadelphia to see who the blue side of New York went with at 19.
With the 19th pick of the first round of the 2018 MLS Super Draft, NYCFC select from the University of Virginia goalkeeper Jeff Caldwell.
The Houston Dynamo are now on the clock.
Jeff Caldwell out of Virginia, 6'3", 190, a 3-year starter. You see the focus right there. Bobby, if I'm not mistaken, he had the play of the combine from the goalkeepers from the penalty spot. Got down, saved 2. What'd you see from him?
He did, but it's actually not his shot stopping that I think NYCFC wants. It's the passing. Yep. He is an extraordinarily good passer. He's comfortable getting balls off his defenders. He can play short and long passes, and that's the way NYCFC plays. They want to play out of the back. Caldwell fits right into that.
I was a little surprised RSL didn't take him, to be honest with you. It maybe would have been a reach at 10 to take a goalkeeper, but if you're looking for an heir to Nick Raimondo, this is the closest thing to it, because he is so good with his feet, especially, I mean, in our culture, in American soccer culture, we don't really teach that to goalkeepers, and he kind of stood out for that to me.
Sean John's going to have that starting spot. No doubt about that. Dynamo on the clock at 20 here, but NYCFC's offseason, for me, has been the best in MLS. They've reinforced at every single position. They're too deep. The challenge right now for the Red Side of New York is a tough one, and Susanna is with Patrick Vieira out in Philly. Let's go check in.
All right, Patrick, you just selected goalkeeper Jeff Caldwell. What was going into this pick? What was the mindset here?
No, but we just looking at our roster and look at where we can try to make the right pick, and we are quite really pleased to go with the goalkeeper, because this is one of the areas we believe that it's always good to have challenges.
We've seen the success of a guy like Jack Harrison, who is able to come in and make an impact straight away. When you look at some of these young players, what are the characteristics that sort of set them apart and set them up for success right away?
Of course, we, it's different ways to identify the talent, and I believe that every teams and every coaches have a different philosophy and different way you want to play the game, and you just try to find the right one who can fit your system. We've been really lucky in the last 2 years with Jack, firstly, and of course with Jonathan and Kwame, because we believe that those young players can help our football club to be successful.
Appreciate the time, Patrick. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, there you see New York City's fans pumped up to be on camera, chasing an MLS Cup title, trying to get over the hump with Toronto FC, but every year they have proved. Houston Dynamo, the next pick is in from Philadelphia. We are rolling right along here in the first draft. Let's go right in to that pick for the Dynamo.
With the 20th pick of the first round of the 2018 MLS Super Draft, the Houston Dynamo select from Southern Methodist University goalkeeper Michael Nelson. Michael is not able to join us today.
SC now on the clock.
Crew SC on the clock. Michael Nelson goes to the Houston Dynamo, the goalkeeper out of SMU, 6'4", 180. A starter basically all 4 years. Had a couple blips here and there, but 10 shutouts his senior year. That's 2 straight goalkeepers in this draft, Doyle.
Yeah, I saw him beat UConn a couple of times. He was always great against my Huskies, so I guess maybe that's what the Dynamo are hoping for here. This speaks to me about these teams wanting to use the Dynamo or the picks to fill a role, rather than going for best talent available, because there's still 2 GAs out there, 2 generation. This is like, okay, we have a role, we want to fill it, we think this guy is just about good enough to do it.
Backup goalkeeper, probably that role right now for Michael Nelson. Let's take a look at the 11 here, guys. What do you see from the Dynamo trying to get back into the playoffs after a big year in 17?
Yeah, an enormous turnaround, as you mentioned last year, Andrew. This team, I think, will look pretty similar to last, and that's because the team went out and secured Elise. That's the best starting point. On the other side, Kyoto faded late in the season. Minota's young, but I think he gets the full-time nod here. Remick could step in for Beasley. Where do you see this team going? Can they replicate the success of last year, Bobby, and make it back into the playoffs?
If you're going to put me on the spot, I'm going to say no. I think last year they caught teams by surprise on the counter with their pace. The one weakness they need to upgrade here, right back. Machado played center back most of last year. They could use a right back, and it's an opportunity for someone to step in and play right away.
All right, let's go right back out to Philadelphia here. The pick is in Columbus Crew SC. Who will they take with number 21?
With the 21st pick of the first round of the 2018 MLS Super Draft, Columbus Crew SC select from Virginia Tech goalkeeper Ben Lundgaard.
The Seattle Sounders FC are now on the clock.
Ben Lundgaard from Virginia Tech, 6'5", 200, a starter his junior and senior years. Got a ton of games the first 2 years of Virginia Tech as well. No way he pushes Zach Steffen out of the picture, but if you look back at the last couple Super Drafts, the guys who have stuck from the later picks, they've been goalkeepers. But let's go right back out to Philadelphia. Susanna Collins is standing by with Sporting KC head coach Peter Vermees.
Peter, Sporting KC, known for their strong defense. You add a center back, Graham Smith. How does that guy bolster your back line?
I think what he does is he puts a lot of guys under pressure. He is very good in the air, brings some height to our team that I think we need. And at the same time, he's very tough in the tackle. So I think he possesses a lot of things that we want from a center back. And the other thing is that he doesn't have to come in right away and be a starter, because I think we have a pretty good back line.
Seems like it. You also have goalkeeper of the year in Tim Melia, but in your first draft pick, you drafted a goalkeeper. What was behind that pick?
Yeah, Eric's a player that we've watched for a while. We feel that he's got incredible range and an incredible ceiling. So, again, Tim's a great goalkeeper. We have 2 other goalkeepers as well that I think are really solid, but it's just one of those guys that we didn't want to pass up. We just think he's a guy for the future, and he seems like he's got a great mentality, and we'll find out here shortly.
Thanks for the time, Peter.
My pleasure.
Seattle Sounders on the clock right now, the 22nd pick. That's 3 straight goalkeepers. As I said, those are the guys that tend to stick. Where are we in sort of the talent rundown here, Doyle?
He's drafting for S2. And being that it's Garth Lagerwey, there's a decent chance that he's either going to draft Ali Curtis or Bobby Warshaw, because he just loves picking guys from Stanford and Duke. So that's where my money is. And if it's not one of you 2 guys, then my money is on Alex Roldan, the younger brother of Christian, who was very, very good over 4 years of college and very, very good at the combine. He's a little bit bigger, a little bit stronger, doesn't quite have the same defensive instincts, but I like him.
I don't want to de-emphasize the draft picks at this point. Just because you don't play every game or you don't start 20 games a season doesn't mean you can't be very, very important to a locker room. At this point, Ali talks about this a lot. Character. Do you work hard in training? Do you get along with your teammates? So at this point in the draft, maybe you're not signing the guy to be an all-star, but you're signing a guy who can make an overall contribution to a 34-game season.
And what I would say, you know, especially when you get this late in the draft, and I know it's still the first round and it's late, but this is where you have process. And so if you have a process and a system, that's where you build in your luck. And so if your process and your system works, then you're going to be able to eventually, you're going to find the guy at 17, 25, 35.
I think this is
42.
going Roldan. The 2 lived together in Seattle. Seattle, you don't even have to move.
We're going to find out right now. Seattle Sounders, who will they take? Will it be Roll Done?
With the 22nd pick of the first round of the 2018 MLS Super Draft, the Seattle Sounders select from Seattle University midfielder Alex Roldan, Christian's younger brother.
Toronto FC are now on the clock.
Alex Roldan from the University of Seattle. As Don Garber said, Christian's younger brother. He's going to be hearing a lot of that in the locker room, but he was a heck of a player at Seattle. He had 4 years there. He started 80 games, it looks like, and he had 6 goals, 8 assists his senior season. Probably not a goal scorer at the next level, but he'll come in, he'll have some good mentors in that Sounders locker room.
He will. He'll be expected to play as a box-to-box guy, I think, and maybe after a year or two they decide, you know what, he could actually be a 6, but it's one of those 2 spots for him long-term. But he's got a good engine, good head for the game, and it's good value for a pick right here.
Toronto FC are on the clock right now. Of course, the defending MLS Cup champions. Let's take a look at the 11. This is the projected 11 of what they hope is the repeat champion.
Yeah, Bobby and I have been trying to put together starting 11s for each team. I think this is the easiest.
Yeah, you got the easy one here, man.
What's there to say here?
Well, the big thing to say is they lost Beta Shore on the right side. And as I've said over and over, in this league, outside backs are becoming more and more important because clearly Michael Bradley and Vasquez are very good players, but everyone has good center midfielders at this point. Everyone has good strikers, so where can you differentiate yourself? Outside back. I think Beta Shore could actually be a pretty big loss, guys.
I don't know. Hassler had 9 starts, 3 goals, comfortable getting forward into the attack. This team looks solid to me.
Can I talk Delgado for a sec, too?
Of course.
Because we talked about that MLS Cup, and they were amazing. But you know who was the best player besides Michael Bradley? It was Osorio. Osorio was so good in the middle of the field. I wouldn't be surprised if he gets that starting spot instead.
I would be. Delgado, to me, was the difference between this team being a very good team and an elite team. When he was on the field and clicking, and you saw that during the playoffs, he struggled, I think, through most of the playoffs. Yeah. And then when it clicked for Delgado in the final, they destroyed Seattle. But I want to make a point here. Everybody says, the draft doesn't matter as much as it used to. I see 2 draft picks of Toronto's in that starting 11. Alex Bono at goalkeeper and Nick Hagglund at right center back. If the draft matters for Toronto FC, who just had the best season in MLS history, it should matter for your team too. So MLS GMs who are out there saying, I don't care about the draft. Tim Bezbachenko, Greg Vanny, they care about the draft. They just added 3 big trophies to their cabinet this year. You should probably care about the draft.
CCL is up next. Drew Moore, draft pick. Justin Morrow, a draft pick. Josie Altidore, a draft pick. Michael Bradley, a draft pick. Delgado came out of the academy for Chivas USA. But you're right, there is talent there on the domestic level. Toronto FC knows it, and they're on the clock with the 23rd pick. I mentioned CCL. I've got the Fever. Do they have a chance to win this thing, Ali?
Yeah, I mean, if you're in it, you got a chance. It's going to be really tough, though. It's not easy. Going into some of those markets and playing against those fans, it's really, really difficult. They've got a talented team. They need to stay healthy. Can some of their younger players that maybe got a few minutes last year, can they step up and really get some significant minutes in some significant games? We'll see. It'll be a tough opportunity.
They had young players step up last year, including Raheem Edwards, who I thought was a big loss during the expansion draft. They lost him to LAFC, who then flipped him to Montreal. Edwards was the guy when Morrow was, out of gas a little bit or on national team duty. Edwards was the guy who came in at that left wing back spot and was a difference maker. I'm not sure I see a left wing back at this point. I don't see a right wing back either. If Segbers or Bai was still on the board, they would definitely have taken them, I think. Probably just means best player available, best pure passer of the ball. Maybe a guy like Alosky from UCLA. Maybe, there are a few other guys who are, I think, more central midfielders, but could maybe play wide as well. But look for a guy who can connect passes.
Well, if you're a player, this is a good club to go to because of their facilities, the way in which they They cultivate their environment and their culture, and they're a team that's in a lot of competitions. You know, they're in the Canadian Championship. They're in MLS regular season. They're in Champions League, and so there's a lot of games. They've got a lot of players that also play with their national team, so they may be missing games, and therefore those are opportunities. So it's a good place to be if you're a young player.
You see the clock ran out on Toronto FC here. That may mean some movement here. It sounds like a trade is in the works for the Reds. 2 Generation Adidas players left still. Edward Opoku out of Virginia, the 20-year-old from Right to Dream, and Gordon Wild, the German, who stayed at Maryland for his junior season after he crushed it as a sophomore. He's 22, still on the board here. We'll see what goes on with Toronto FC. What do you make of these GAs dropping?
I think Wild was in the draft because Ziggy Schmidt likes him. I think that LAFC or the Galaxy kind of suspected that they would be able to maybe trade into the early part of the second round and pick up Gordon Wild for a song. As for Opoku, I don't get it. I do not understand why he was a late addition to the class, and here on the verge of round 2, he's still available.
All right, we've got some information for you coming out of Philly. Of course, we mentioned that trade. Let's see what went down.
We have a trade to announce involving Toronto FC and Minnesota United. Toronto have traded the 23rd overall pick to Minnesota United in return for $50,000 in targeted allocation money and the 5th pick in the second round of today's draft. And with the 23rd pick of the first round of the 2018 MLS Super Draft, Minnesota United select from Duke University defender Carter Manley.
Carter Manley, the Duke Blue Devil, coming out to Minnesota United, who have made a bunch of moves in this first round. Got and picked up 3 American players to bolster their team in year 2. Manley, a defensive presence for them. They needed help at outside back. Is that where you see him projected?
He can play both center back or outside back. Probably better at an outside back. And as we keep on saying, it's cool to see teams value guys who can get down the wing at outside back.
And I think he's pretty athletic. I mean, I got a chance earlier this year. I was down at Duke, and I saw play Louisville. I've spoken a lot with John Kerr. I've got a good relationship with John, and we've talked a little bit about some of his players. So he's fairly athletic, pretty decent as a 1v1 defender, and a lot of times you can start young players out there. It's isolated. You don't have to, say, use your brain as much when you're playing kind of on the wing sometimes, and it allows you to acclimate kind of to a faster-paced game a little bit quicker.
So we're on to pick 24 here. The first round is done and dusted. Toronto got $50K of TAM and the 5th pick in the second round for that final selection there. Take it back. Let's run it back here and see who got taken 1, 2, 23 and get your guys' thoughts here. Minnesota United, as I said, moving around, had 3 picks, but you see the top 8 here. João Moutinho making history with LAFC, the 19-year-old defender out of Portugal with the first overall pick in 2018. Tomas Hilliard Arce, defender that many people say could play for 10 years. Then you run through a couple of Generation Adidas products. John Baquero, high upside questions about athleticism, and Mason Toye, Minnesota moved forward for. They also moved up and got Wyatt Omsberg via another trade. I think right now they feel like the winners, at least just kind of on the first reaction in this first round.
We talked at the start of the show about how the draft isn't as important a player acquisition mechanism as it once was, because teams are going out there and spending money, be it TAM or DP slots, on big-name players, be they young or a little bit older. Minnesota United are not a team that goes out and spends big money on players, whether it's DP slots, they still have no DPs, or whether it's TAM, which they're kind of hoarding after last year's unfortunate offseason. So they are treating the draft not as a sort of supplemental roster-building tool, but as an essential roster building tool, and I like what they've done quite a bit. I think they got 2 guys in their first 2 picks who can play big minutes this year.
Here's the thing about the draft. Yeah, plays don't matter as much, but when it's harder, it just becomes more important. It means the margins are smaller and it's more of a place to get an advantage, and that's what Montreal's doing. Like you said, they don't have a chance to spend the money. Where can you find your competitive advantage in MLS now? And Minnesota's doing it right now.
I like Minnesota's picks as well. 3 goalkeepers going in the first round. I'm still trying to digest that. That is, I think, an indicator
Was it
into
four?
Was it four?
Yes.
3 straight at one point.
straight.
4 overall.
And that's an indicator to me about where coaches are seeing the talent going and how they want to just stash maybe goalkeepers who are going to develop later. The pick that I like the best is Orlando City's with Mueller. I think he's a guy that will fit into Crisis system, a nice piece for him to work with in
All
Orlando.
right, we got plenty more to come. The second round is coming up. In the meantime, let's see what you guys think of this draft. We'll be right back. All right, welcome back to the Super Draft 2018 edition. Rolling on into the second round. I'm Andrew Wiebe, Kalen Carr, Bobby Warshaw, Ali Curtis, and Matt Doyle with me. LAFC on the clock for pick number 4. But we already have big reports out there from Paul Tenorio. Says a story coming on ESPN FC. But it is a blockbuster trade, if true, guys. Chicago Fire sending David Accam to their Eastern Conference rival, Philadelphia Union, for more than $1 million in gam and tam. Initial reactions, Ali? Actually, before we do that, LAFC are on the clock. Let's get that 24th pick in, and then we'll talk about David Accam.
With the first pick of the second round of the 2018 MLS Super Draft, presented by Adidas, LAFC select from the University of Pittsburgh, midfielder Paul Calvet-Planellis.
The Colorado Rapids are now on the clock.
Paul Calvet-Planellis out of the University of Pittsburgh, 5'7", 160. He's from Barcelona. Spent 8 years playing for FC Barcelona's academy. He was a U17 international for Spain and played a little bit for Barca B. 14 games played, 12 starts in 2017 with Pitt. They went for that pedigree, guys.
A beautiful passer of the ball. He has that, La Masia pedigree, as he's mentioned. I thought Atlanta United were going to take him because Tata Martino was actually there at Barcelona when Planellis was there as well. He'll play in central midfield, spread the ball around, and make possession matter if he can make the team.
Okay, but let's get back to David Accam. This is a huge move. This is one of the biggest trades in MLS history, if true, and Paul Tenorio has been trusted. What's it mean?
It's exciting for Philly. As someone who's really stoked to watch Chicago this year, I'm admittedly a little let down. I'm excited for Philly. I don't want to say Philly fans, I don't care about you, but I was stoked for Chicago, and this totally changes their dynamic.
If this is true, this is massive. One, it's a massive amount of allocation that goes from one club to the other. It's intra-conference, so you're going to be competing against a player that used to be on your team for the last 3-4 years, which is enormous. And David Accam is, for me, he's one of those handful of players that he can do it all. So I like him as, I call him, he's a playoff player in my opinion, because when it's cold in October and November, and for whatever the reason things get tight and they get chippy, you need one player that can kind of do it all and do it on his own, and he's that type of player.
This is an excellent move for Philadelphia Union. Philly fans, we're Philly fans. I know you guys have been struggling for so long, waiting for someone to come along, and I think Accam is that guy. If you look now the way this team is structured, they're kind of set up like the Dynamo are. You get Picault on one side and Accam on the other. Nobody's going to want to turn and run with those guys. And then you have that balance. The fulcrum goes through C.J. Sapong, U.S. men's national team player. That front three now has turned this team from almost toothless at times, or all dependent on Sapong, to now having real balance on both wings.
Now on the flip side, with regard to Chicago, if you're looking at the economics of this trade, you look at you can't sell Accam and get that amount of allocation. So this is really significant. It gives, not only does Chicago free up the budget space, which is huge, but they also free up an enormous amount of allocation where they can either A, use that and go get another player within the league, or they can go in the international market, pick up another player that can help them moving forward.
All right, Bobby, I'll let you get a thought in here, but we got to go on to the 25th pick. Todd Derman is standing by.
With the second pick of the second round of the 2018 MLS Super Draft, the Colorado Rapids select from the University of North Carolina, forward Alan Wynn.
DC United are now on the clock.
Alan Wynn, a forward from UNC Chapel Hill, 11 goals his senior season, the first time he'd scored more than 6. The Rapids picking him up as they build some depth up top ahead of another season in which they're trying to get in the playoffs after that big 2016-2017 was a down year. Bobby, let's get back to David Accam, though. You were sitting on a point. What was it?
This just drives me bonkers when we talk about trades. Who can you get to replace David Accam in this league? He's a top 2 or 3 attacker. No matter what amount of money you can get, where can you go to find a player to replace David Accam?
Well, I think he's a phenomenal player. I don't think he's a top 2 or 3 attacker. You got Bradley Wright Phillips, you've got David Villa, you've got a couple of players that probably I do believe he's in the top tier, but he's fulfilled his service. He's played 4 years on that club. He's given them good effort, good numbers. He's been a great servant, and now they've got an opportunity to maybe go in a different direction. They have other targets. You've seen that they have a strong track record of bringing in some other international players that have done well. You saw the designated player that they acquired last year. Maybe it's an opportunity for them to acquire a few other players and strengthen their club.
I don't think there's any maybe about it. I think Chicago are definitely going to go out and acquire a few other players. To your point, he is one of the very best wingers in the league when his head is in the game and when he's fit, and he wasn't fit the second half of the year, just carrying an injury. But he's, like a lot of players, he is that guy when he's happy. And there have been issues with David Accam maybe not being completely happy in Chicago over the last year and a half. Change of scenery, puts him in a place where he is the man. He's perfect with CJ Sapong because CJ's so great at coming off the line and playing runners through. And this should all work out for David Accam and for the Philadelphia Union. For the Fire, Nelson Rodriguez, he's got to go make probably 2 or 3 signings.
Make no mistake, David Accam is a quality player. If you're going to move a guy like David Accam, you got to get something like $1 million of allocation. So I think it's probably a move that may suit both sides. The thing you wonder about a little bit is just moving a player within the league. But, you know, even when you look at the Red Bulls and moving Dax to Chicago, it kind of worked out for both clubs. So it's not impossible. It's not the worst thing in the world. But a lot of times when you have a quality player, sometimes you like to move them into
I do want to get back to the Lee Win thing, which we talked about a little bit, I think, when the Revs were picking. Lee Win asked for a trade. The Revs say they're not going to trade him. Chicago have needed a number 10. Chicago now have $1 million in allocation money that they can maybe put into a trade.
Could Juan Quintero be back in play? Do you go get like for like at the left wing, or do you stick with that number 10?
I mean, Quintero to me is more of a number 10 than a pure winger anyway. So I think he's probably still in play a little bit, but if you're Chicago, you have to have plan B, C, D, E, all the way down to Z. And Nelson Rodriguez is a fastidious guy. I'm sure he does.
Kaylin, tell me what the Fire with Lee Win would look like.
Well, they'd have that creative piece that they've lacked probably since the days of Blanco back in the late teen, or I think it was 09-10. Somebody that you can give the ball in a tight space and wiggle out of something, create an unexpected play. They haven't had that in a long time. They've had to use Accam through the channels or Nikolic in behind. They need somebody underneath to really grab hold of the game in tough moments besides Dax and Schweinsteiger, who like to do that from deeper positions. I think Lee would be fantastic for this team if they can acquire him.
Right now, still not official, though. I just got to throw that out there. Paul Tenorio, we trust his reporting. Still not official. We'll have to see.
And one of the reasons why I'm sure Brad Friedel said, hey, we're not moving Lee Win is because he's a talented player. So put aside Chicago, I think probably Lee Win would probably be good on a lot of different teams. But New England has invested a lot in him, and he's a key piece of their team.
All these guys, creative players, you mentioned it, need to be happy. They need to be enjoying their football. You saw Benny Feilhaber wasn't successful in New England, goes down to Kansas City, revitalizes. Came up against a wall again, now he's gone to LAFC. So if you're a guy like Lee Win who's been successful throughout, you should give him credit for that.
You're the creative player on this panel. Are you happy right now, Kaylin?
I couldn't be happier. Come on,
Is David Accam happy?
I think so. I think so because, I mean, he kind of wanted out, and he's going to a place where, you know, I'm not sure he's the best player, but he's suddenly the biggest name in that team. So I think he's probably pretty happy with this move.
Let's be clear about something. That Philly staff needed to do something just to keep fans happy. We don't like to think about it that way, but sometimes you make a move just to get a little weight off your back. So now with Accam there, it did that.
Yeah, he's a best 11 caliber player. They just got him, so Philly fans should be happy.
Philly fans probably blowing up Twitter right now. Vancouver Whitecaps are on the clock, and their pick is in. Let's go back out to Todd Durbin.
With the third pick of the second round of the 2018 MLS Super Draft, the Vancouver Whitecaps select from Creighton University, defender Lucas Stauffer.
The Colorado Rapids are now on the clock.
Lucas Stauffer out of Creighton, a run on outside backs to the Vancouver Whitecaps. They learned well, apparently, from Jake Nerwinski. What can this guy contribute?
Skill. He's a futsal player, and you see it in the way he plays the game. He's good with both feet. He's good in tight spaces. He can maybe see some tricks in a little cramped quarters like that one that other guys don't see. I do question, though, whether that's a fit for how Vancouver play. I mean, Vancouver play boom ball out of the back. It's all route run all the time.
It's also changing this year. We hear whispers that it'll move to a 3-5-2. No more 4-2-3-1. Stauffer can play both essentially in the 3 or on either wingback. Play right, play left. He's just a guy that's good at soccer. We talk about these guys, good at receiving the ball, good at passing the ball, can play multiple positions.
Vancouver Whitecaps with Kai Kamara. I mean, we'll talk about these outside backs, but Kai Kamara is the big addition. It's always about striker in Vancouver. Was that the right move?
It remains, we'll see. I mean, Kai Kamara, he can put up numbers. He can score goals. So he's a big personality, too, so you're going to have to manage that. Vancouver is an interesting team. They're a team that's really, they've kind of gone up and they've kind of gone down, and they've kind of made moves that have kind of improved their team in one year, and then in another year maybe it hasn't worked out so much. So it'll be interesting. They're a team that you look at to say, are they going to make that next jump? Are they going to make that next step where they're doing really well in the playoffs and they're really going to make a push at MLS Cup? Kai Kamara is that type of player, but he's got to be comfortable. He's got to be in the right system, and he needs the right service.
What kind of player is Efrain Juarez? They say he's a midfielder. He was right back in Mexico.
I mean, you just kind of summed it up. He over the last maybe 5-6 years, he's played primarily defense, and I think kind of a 3-5-2. You've seen him at wingback a little bit as well, and you've seen him a little bit at defensive midfielder. But they're talking about using him as a central midfielder. I'm not sure I get it, but we'll see. He's still in the prime of his career. He's a good player, and you never say no to a good player.
All right, let's turn to Colorado Rapids, who are on the clock right now with pick 27. They are chasing a center forward. We know that. Ola Kamara in the mix. They got some other targets in Europe. Is this team, Kaylin, closer to becoming a playoff team?
Well, they went through a real high and a real low, and for them to get back on track, I think it starts in the back. The new coach is going to set up their formation. You hear rumors of a 3-5-2 potentially. Marlon Harrison sliding into sort of a wing-back position. Dominic Baji up top, quietly, 9 goals last year. He missed a penalty on the last day of the season to get to that 10 spot. I think he's underrated in the league. Gashi, can he come back and help this team? That was the big missing piece. They'd lost Jermaine Jones. They'd lost Marco Papa. They were expecting more of Gashi last year, and he wasn't able to give it to them. But they're going to need to make some moves.
They don't really have a playmaker as far as I see it. I mean, I guess Stefan Aigner might be that guy, and he came in and played pretty well over the last couple of months of the season, but like relatively speaking, I'm grading on a curve. Like creative for Colorado is a little different than creative for other teams. So, but he's going to have, I mean, I think most of the creative responsibility is going to be on him. There might get help here, but it's not going to be an answer here.
Yeah, it sounds like they're still active. Of course, they have the 27th pick, and that is in. Let's go out to Philadelphia.
With the 4th pick of the 2nd round of the 2018 MLS Super Draft, the Colorado Rapids select from Coastal Carolina University, forward Franzi Pirot.
Toronto FC are now on the clock.
Franzi Pirot out of Coastal Carolina, 6'4", you see it right there. 10 goals, 4 assists his senior year. You liked what you saw at the Combine, Bobby.
I did, and another spot where someone can come in and play right away is at striker for Colorado. Powerful forward, but I actually really like talking about these teams that didn't make the playoffs because it's up to your imagination on what they're going to do. Did Colorado get better? Did they get more likely to make the playoffs? Yes, because there probably wasn't anywhere else to go, so it's interesting to see how they make those moves.
Center back feels like a spot they got to fill. This doesn't fill that. Just one piece in the puzzle, Doyle. What do they have to do the rest of the window?
I think they should stand pat with what they have at center back. There are rumors that Axel Sjöberg is on the market. I know he's a guy that Bobby would trade in a second, but he's been a good player in this league for the last few years. I think they're about to sign the defender from Ipswich Town, Tommy Smith. They just got Tom Price, I believe his name is, the defensive midfielder from Wolves. Jack Price, sorry. So they've added some pieces. They've got guys with good pedigrees. Nobody that sort of blows you away in this MLS 4.0, whatever version that we're in right now. But I look at that team and it comes back to, do they have a creator? Are they going to be able to create chances in those big tight moments that you talked about where guys like David Beckham shine? And do they have an elite finisher? Dominic Badji was good last year, but to me he maxes out as a guy who's got you like 7 to 10 goals. He's not a guy who can lead you to the top of the standings. So I think, that front office has a lot of work.
Toronto FC on the clock here, about 2 minutes to go until this pick. Of course, they went from worst to champions here, Ali. How hard is it to actually go from out of the playoffs and in over the course of one off season?
I think it's really, really difficult to improve your team. There is a tremendous amount of parity in this league. The international market is not completely transparent. The college, the super draft in terms of the players that you're drafting, GA or otherwise, it's not completely transparent. So, these GMs have a really difficult job. It's not easy. And then with the injection of TAM, makes it a little bit easier, but everyone has access to that. So every team is trying to win. Every game is hard. It's one of the things that makes this league beautiful and great, but it's extremely difficult. And it's why it's so important that you have a good plan and a process in place. And then you hope that if you have the right plan, you have the right process, you have the right personnel, that those things breed good luck. And you hope that at some point that you, because of that process or that system that you've cultivated, that's going to spit out the right player in situations where you otherwise, you may not know the right decision. All the data points, they're not going to align on every decision, and they're less than 50%. But if you have the right system and the right process, usually that's going to equate into good decisions, good players. It's going to help your team. Maybe it gets you extra 3 points, extra 6 points, extra 9 points. Helps you get in the playoffs, helps you win MLS Cup.
Maybe best ever like Toronto FC. We've talked about how they built their roster from everywhere. By the way, they have 3 of the highest paid players in the league. Do you need, in this iteration of MLS, to be elite, 3 DPs, 3 elite DPs?
I'm gonna jump. I think you need some real. I think you got to spend some money. You need some real muscle. And that's one of the reasons why the board has allowed teams to have access to targeted allocation money.
I think it makes it easier, but FC Dallas was the best team in the league in 2016. They won the Shield and Open Cup double, and they didn't spend money.
So if I'm a GM, I want to win Supporters Shield, right, but I want to win MLS Cup.
Right.
And so I think that most teams, they go into this gig thinking, I want to win MLS Cup. That's the goal. I think when you look at a 34-game regular season, that essentially is the quote-unquote, best team per se over a long stretch of season. But you really want to win MLS Cup. It's about the playoffs. It's about what you can do in those 1 or 2 game series. Yeah.
Let's go out to Philadelphia and see what Toronto FC did with the 28th pick.
With the 5th pick of the 2nd round of the 2018 MLS Super Draft, Toronto FC select from the University of Louisville, defender Tim Kubel.
FC Dallas are now on the clock.
Tim Kubel out of Louisville. Just Julian Gressel high-fiving somewhere at the Super Draft floor. Another German goes here. Still waiting on Gordon Wild. We'll see what happens with that one. What'd you see from him, Bobby, resident defender, coming in with the analysis?
Toronto is stoked about this pick. You talk about the guy who is the most natural replacement for Steven Beitashour. Yep. It's Tim Kubel. On the older side, not super athletic, but just a smart, decent soccer player and can slot right into that right wing back position.
This is exactly what they did last year. They picked Oyvind Alseth, who gave them 200-300 minutes during the season at right wing back when Beitashour was hurt, when they didn't have other options there, and he was fine. And they had scouted him specifically for that role. Yep. They knew he could play right wing back in a 3-5-2. They know that Kubel can play right wing back in a 3-5-2. He's got a chance to win a job here. It might not be long term, but this is how you This is how you use the draft to get yourself a Band-Aid on what is currently maybe a slightly weak spot while you go out and find a permanent fix.
He's got to push out Nicholas Haslett. Just want to throw that out.
He's not going to start. He's not going to start. He's there to be Hasler's backup.
Well, this is where we talked about earlier in the show when we talked about, hey, and we talked it in the context of Generation Adidas in terms of that international tag. This is where it matters a little bit more because here's a player that's drafted late. He's going to have to make the team in preseason, and it's going to be that much more difficult because there's a limited amount of international roster slots. And so that's when this really comes into play in terms of does the international tag hurt you or help you?
But this gets back to how well TFC have built that roster, man. They gave more minutes to North Americans last year than any other team in the league, and they have international roster spots to spare.
Yes, there's a glaring weakness on this Toronto team, is there not? It's what they said after 2016 when they lost to Seattle. There's no pacey winger, and they might not always play with a winger, but they've got no one, like we mentioned with David Accam. When it's a stalemate, when it's a cagey game, who are you going to give the ball to, get to the end line, and get the ball to Josie?
Akinola. They just signed their best academy kid. He was a star with the US U17s, and look, Greg Vanny has showed over the years he's willing to give a kid a chance if the kid earns it. But you're right. I would feel a little bit more confident about this group if they had kept Raheem Edwards.
Saying TFC has a glaring weakness.
This is my point. They were very good. They were very good, but this is a pretty obvious hole that they could have.
Well, if you want to, they have Javinko can go to the wing. He doesn't just stay in the middle. Okay. He can go to the wing. Ricketts.
Yeah,
he comes on. He can go out there. But what I'm noticing happening right now is early in the draft, you're seeing teams pick on value, the best players available. Now as you fall later, you're starting to see actual more need specific, looking for backups.
Goalkeepers especially.
Goalkeepers, right backs.
Players. Like, nobody thinks that Kubel's going to be an all-star.
There's a reason for all this, and I'll get to that after this pick. But FC Dallas' 29th pick in, the 6th of the second round. Let's go to Philly.
With the 6th pick of the second round of the 2018 MLS Super Draft, FC Dallas select from Southern Methodist University, midfielder Mauro Cicero.
The San Jose Earthquakes are now on the clock.
Mauro Cicero out of SMU, 6'3", 175. They obviously have scouted him in the area. SMU, a place where many years before
they signed a kid from Kano, the center back from SMU, and he's the brother of a former MLS player. Gabriel Cicero, who played for the Red Bulls way back in the day and is a Venezuelan international. Cicero, before doing his ACL, was considered, I think, probably the best number 10 in college soccer. So this is like, okay.
All-American teams.
Yeah, so this is like, okay, maybe we can get him healthy and maybe we could find a spot for him in that midfield. It's a guy they know.
Taking a flyer on him. I mentioned the second round and the gambles here, and you guys were talking about how do you draft. Well, 2017, 5 active players still in MLS. 2016 from the second round, 3. 2015, 5. Why is that? Why don't players stick from this round?
Well, typically the better players are drafted earlier. Explain
to these guys watching home, the families, the friends, everybody
else.
else.
Murder, my God.
Typically in every league, in every draft, the better players are the guys that are being taken in the first round, and that's no different in Major League Soccer. With that being said, you can find a lot of value in that second round. You can find your Chris Wondolowski. You can find some of these really talented players that if you have the process and the system right, hopefully you're going to get the next Kalen. Well, he was drafted in the first round, but hopefully you're going to get a talented player.
We'll also give credit to these clubs and the homegrown investment, because they've gone out and we're identifying better players younger now. So at 22, 23, a lot of these players, the profiles of them are international players who've come over through Right to Dream, Jack Harrison from the UK, players like that. So we're identifying American talent younger. I actually think it's a positive step.
Let's see what Toronto FC has to say about their choice. Greg Vanny is with Susanna Collins.
Greg, you selected Tim Kubel out of Louisville with the 28th pick. What did you like about this player? Why is he a good fit for you guys?
Well, he's a player that we've followed for the last 4 years at Louisville, and we've liked him. We were optimistic he might come out as a GA a couple years ago. He didn't, and so at this point on the board, we're looking for depth, maybe at our right back position, and he's got good pedigree, good experience, and of the guys remaining, we think he maybe has the best chance to try to make our team. So we're looking forward to getting him into camp and seeing how he does.
MLS Cup champions, most points in league history. You guys have a pretty solid unit intact right now, but what else can we expect from you guys throughout the draft? What pieces are you looking to put in place?
Yeah, I mean, we have to take into account what players we have coming through our academy, what our USL group looks like, also our first team. We're going to try to, as much as we can, find depth and find players that we think over the next year or two can maybe make the transition. And that's what we're trying to size up as we go through this, and we see certain players go off the board. You have to reassess along the way.
Appreciate the time, Greg.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks.
All right, San Jose on the clock here, guys. They've had a lot of changes this offseason. One I want to ask you about, Bobby. Magnus Eriksson.
Just a good player, good coming off the wing, scores goals, creates assists. The one worrisome part is he had a very good career in Sweden with Malmö. He went to Denmark and struggled. It's always hard to predict how a player is going to acclimate. Ollie said it earlier about acclimating to a new team, a new league. That's one thing that's worrisome. We know he's a good player, but it's just always hard, especially when you're moving abroad.
And it's been hit and miss with guys from Scandinavia over the last couple of years, as I think they learned to their detriment in Minnesota. But we've seen a lot of guys come into MLS from Norway and Sweden this offseason in particular. It's going to be kind of a litmus test in terms of judging these leagues and seeing how these guys all adapt.
And there's a question of why Scandinavia? And the answer is the leagues are just similar. The soccer's similar, the language is similar, the way you think and see the game. So in terms of moving from, the schedule is similar.
When the contracts run out, can I throw that out there? Most of these guys on free.
Exactly, exactly.
In terms of
But the problem they're running up against is MLS is a more athletic league. It's a more international league. It's 100%. A lot harder to play over here. So that's the big transition for them, is to go, like, you're not playing against a ton of Ghanaian players. You're not playing against a ton of Paraguayans or Venezuelans, so the pace is a different step, but it used to be the opposite is the interesting part. It used to be American players wanting to go to Scandinavia to make more money. Now MLS is actually a better financial decision as well.
Yeah, and now with that said, there's usually not a language barrier as well, which helps acclimate players to the league as well. So
Joe Inge-Berget also signing with NICFC today. Let's go back to Philly. We've got the pick as well as some news for you.
Before we announce the next pick, we have a trade to announce involving the Philadelphia Union and the Chicago Fire. The Chicago Fire have traded David Accam to the Philadelphia Union in return for $300,000 general allocation and $900,000 TAM. As for the pick, with the 7th pick of the 2nd round of the 2018 MLS Super Draft, the San Jose Earthquakes select from the University of Nevada, Las Vegas, forward Danny Wasowski.
The New York Red Bulls are now on the clock.
Danny Musovsky, you see him here out of UNLV. The forward going to San Jose. 15 goals his senior year. He got double digits 3 out of 4 years with the running Rebels. We will see if he can contribute to the San Jose team. What'd you see out of him at the Combine, Bobby?
He had my favorite line, my favorite interview. A, he asked where Matt Doyle was and if he was coming to Combine. But B, there's a ton of number 9s at the Combine, and I asked them all, what kind of number 9 you are? Danny Musovsky looks at me like I'm crazy. He goes, I'm a goal scorer. I score goals. It's like, all right, dude, good for you. So that's what we can expect. A guy in the Wando mold just scores goals.
All right, he's got to score those goals. David Accam has a track record of doing so. We now know the nitty-gritty here. 300 in GAM, 900 in TAM. Go to the Chicago Fire, 1.2. Right up there with the biggest trades in MLS history. I look at that 900 TAM number, and it says something to me, Doyle.
It says they're building around David Accam. They expect him to deliver probably 15 goals and 7 or 8 assists next year. And if you looked at the way Philly played last season, CJ Sabon created so much for his wingers, and those guys could not finish. I'm a big Chris Bonias fan, but he lost his scoring touch last year. If you put Accam in a groove in that spot, he's going to get you 12 to 15 goals. He's going to cause hell for these opposing defenses. And I do wonder if this means they've decided they're okay with Adam Najem and Fabian Erbers as the sort of playmakers of second forwards working underneath CJ.
They've had trouble playmaking. They've tried Bedoya there. They've tried multiple people. Now you can just skip that. Just play it in behind, make them turn and chase, similar to the way Houston has operated. I said it before, but Houston the best defense is a good attack. And Houston's back line wasn't fantastic last year, but had great numbers, and partly because they put pressure on teams. I think now, more than anything, Philadelphia has a real style, a real system, and a perspective on the game to be able to turn and run and let these guys really go forward.
Red Bulls on the clock here at 6. Are the Union now a playoff team? Is this enough?
Yes. Yes. The answer is
that's the Pennsylvania native speaking there, maybe.
Okay, maybe.
I think Akam certainly helps Philadelphia. Now, how they put the pieces together in preseason and during the regular season remains to be seen. You know, I like to look at this from a Chicago perspective in that the economics of this deal are phenomenal. You can sell 2 players and you get 1.3. They get 1.2. Added on the fact that they probably lost about 500K or freed up 500K in allocation, so they go up to about 1.7 million in cleared space. That's unprecedented.
Was the move. New York Red Bulls, their pick is in the 8th of the second round. Let's go to Philadelphia.
With the 8th pick of the second round of the 2018 MLS Super Draft, the New York Red Bulls select from the University of Akron, defender Nico De Vera.
Columbus Crew SC are now on the clock.
Nico De Vera out of Akron, headed to the New York Red Bulls. What'd you see at the Combine, Bobby?
High energy guy. We talked about the way the Red Bulls like to play. They want to press. They want to get up and down the field. They want guys with an engine, and this is exactly it. He can overlap, can get balls in the box, he can close down space well. Maybe not the best player, but just fits into what Jesse Morris wants to do.
Red Bulls 2 probably in his future, we'd think?
Listen, it's great for the Red Bulls that they have that platform for young players. I look at it like he's a guy that maybe could be the next player to fill in Kamar Lawrence's shoes. Kamar's done really well for them. He's athletic. He likes to get forward. At some point, will Kamar sign a new contract, or will he move on? That remains to be seen. But this is a player that can learn from a player like Kamar Lawrence. He can learn from the system under Jesse and the rest of the staff. So it's an interesting pick.
It has to be noted, there have been rumors all offseason about maybe Kamar Lawrence having interest, I think specifically from teams in Turkey. Even if they sell Kamar Lawrence, Nico De Vera is not going to walk in and be a starter in this league. He's going to have to go fight for his minutes at Montclair with Red Bulls too. And like Ali said, it's great for that team that they have that. And it's the same with the pick before. Danny Musovski's a player I like a lot. I think I saw some mock drafts where he was going in the top 15 or so.
I know why you like him.
Yeah, I mean, he likes me, so that's cool. But like, he's going from UNLV. He's not going to San Jose. He's going up to Reno. He's going to play in USL with Reno. And if he goes there and scores, then he has a chance to win a full-time job with the Quakes, the way Chris Wehan did after the tremendous season he had in USL.
And I think you can't be lost that Tyler Adams played 2 years on the USL team for the Red Bulls before he played in MLS at all. Yeah. And so there's a system in place there where as a young player you can get minutes, you still get experience with the first team, or at least exposure, and still develop so that hopefully we talk about when does a player kind of turn the corner. I always think it's probably the 3rd year. In the same way in college you kind of turn the corner your junior year. It's not too dissimilar at the pro level. You've got to find a way to develop, be a part of the team for those first 2 years as a professional, and then that 3rd year you've got to be a rock star.
All right, we've seen Florian Velo, Aaron Long make impacts off that USL team as well. Columbus Crew SC are up next. I got to ask, guys, we're at the point in the second round here where hearts are maybe in stomachs for a few folks that are at the draft, rated highly. 2 Generation Adidas guys still have not gone. Gordon Wild, Edward Opoku. We'll talk about them in just a little bit. The pick is in for Columbus Crew SC. Let's head back to Philadelphia.
With the 9th pick of the second round of the 2018 MLS Super Draft, the Columbus Crew SC select from the University of Virginia and member of Generation Adidas, midfielder Edward Opoku.
Real Salt Lake are now on the clock.
Edward Opoku out of Virginia, the 20-year-old, came out as a junior, 8 goals, 4 assists his junior season. He is joining a large Ghanaian contingent there in Columbus. He's going to be right at home with some of those guys. They took Lawless Abubakar last year, but the biggest move continues to be the Philadelphia Union picking up David Accam, $1.2 million in allocation money. Another Ghanaian, and Susanna Collins is out with Jim Curtin of the Union to talk about it.
Okay, Jim, reacting to the big trade, the Union acquired David Accam from Chicago. Why was he your guy? Why did you want this player?
Yeah, we talked earlier, obviously, and I kind of bit my lip and said some things were coming. But, yeah, really excited to get David, a guy who obviously can stretch a defense. We have some guys that can pass and get on the ball. He'll give them room to operate in space. But, yeah, David's a proven goal scorer in our league. His resume speaks for itself. Adding an incredible player, and we're really excited to have him in Philly.
The Union fan base has been a little bit restless this offseason. Why should they be excited about this move?
But listen, every team right now is not complete. You know, going into a preseason, there's still going to be a lot more action that happens throughout the league. Players will be brought in, players will be traded from different teams in the league. That's just the nature of our business. So I would say no team is complete just yet. We're excited to get to work down in Clearwater, and we know that we already have a good core group to work with. I think David obviously brings a different element to our group. We're really excited to have him. And you think about him and CJ Sapong operating together, that's something that I know center backs won't like to deal with. So that's a good thing, and I think it will really benefit the rest of our midfield as well, which might be the kind of thing that people don't see when trades like this happen.
Jim, thanks so much for the time. I appreciate it.
How does this benefit that midfield, guys? We know about CJ Sapong.
Space. If you're lining up against David Accam, you gotta prepare for that speed, and that means you can't start swarming the midfield. And if you give guys like Bedoya, but even more so Harris Medunjanin, the ability to pick out those long balls, suddenly they are a much more dangerous team. It's what happens off the ball makes it so much easier on the ball.
All right, pick is in for Real Salt Lake at 33 here. That is the 10th of this round. Let's go out to that one and see who Todd Durbin names.
As well. So you guys gave me a great opportunity from a kid who started school at the age of 10 and be able to stay out here and speak great English and be the young man that I am today. I want to say a big thank you to you guys. And
all right, Ed Rapoku getting his time. Let's go to Susanna, who's with Gio Savarese of the Timbers.
Gio, your first Super Draft as a head coach. You seem very calm, cool, and collected, though. How has this day been going for you?
Very good. Of course, when you have the 61 pick, you know, everything is calm. And we've just been watching, everything that has been happening. I think some interesting players going to different teams. So it's been very good.
What are you looking to accomplish today? What pieces are there people still on the board that you're excited about?
No, I think for us the important part right now is seeing some players where they go to, how they will do in those teams. Make sure that we know exactly, follow them, and then see where they're going to end up in the future. Just keep the track, because as I said, we don't have a pick very close. So, and our team is pretty much in a good base.
Thanks so much for your time, Gio. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, let's go back out for the pick here. RSL on the clock.
With the 10th pick of the second round of the 2018 MLS Super Draft, Real Salt Lake select from Creighton University, midfielder Ricky Lopez Espin.
FC Dallas are now on the clock.
Ricky Lopez Espin going to RSL. The Creighton midfielder, forward, goal scorer his final 2 years, 12 goals in his senior year, 10 goals in his junior year. Doyle, what do you think about him?
I think he's a center forward. I understand that he's listed as a midfielder / forward, but to me he's a guy who projects best as a big, strong, aerial dominant number 9. You see, he's got good footwork. He's got really soft feet. I think if he had gone to a different college and played in a different system, he would have put a lot more goals on the board. this is a really good value pick for RSL. And you also know, and this is a weird way to think about it, he busted his ACL as a freshman, and he worked hard, and he came back, and you know that because of that, you know he has the work ethic to recover from a devastating injury like that.
Edward Opoku is going to have a chip on his shoulder, for sure. Goes to Crew SC here with the 32nd pick, 9th overall, but Generation Adidas sat on the board for a long time. What's that do to his mentality?
If you can get that much high-end talent, Columbus is going to be excited, especially, like you said, he has something to prove. A lot of these guys who are first-round draft picks feel like they've made it. They feel like they've accomplished something. So to get a guy with the talent of a first-round draft pick and get him in the 2nd round just adds a little something extra.
Yeah, I mean, it brings you back to reality. You know, this is professional sports, and so a lot of times information goes a lot of different ways. You hear a lot of things from fans and different things on social media, maybe your agent, maybe your parent, about where you should be drafted, whether that's in the top 10 or in the top 5. And as a young player, as a young person, that influences your expectations. And so when you think you're going to be drafted in the 1st round and you drop to the 2nd round, it's a reality check. And those guys need that because you're going to go into preseason, and whether you're a 1st round pick or a 2nd round pick, you got to make the team.
I have it from good sources that Kalen Carr's draft stock is dropping right now.
Oh.
It's not where you start, it's where you finish.
Trash talk here.
Yeah.
Strap on the helmet. That's where Kalen Carr finished. Let's go back out to Philadelphia. FC Dallas's pick is in.
With the 11th pick of the 2nd round of the 2018 MLS Super Draft, presented by Adidas, FC Dallas select from Georgetown University midfielder Chris Lema.
The San Jose Earthquakes are now on the clock.
Leonardo Cuola taking over at the podium. Chris Lema has his name called out of Georgetown. The midfielder was one that you liked at the Combine, Bobby.
Yeah, perhaps the best passer of all the center mids, but here is his weakness. While he's a good passer, while he's good in possession, he just vacated the middle of the field too often. But I'll tell you from experience, having been a center midfielder who did the same thing under Oscar Pereira my rookie year, Oscar will be in his ear. So in terms of a guy who has the technical ability to go to the league, he can do it, and Oscar is the coach to teach him the best way.
Tell me what these guys are going to be in for with Oscar Pereira. What are they walking into first day of preseason?
Dude, a fire. There's no other way to put it. The most intense practice session of I could tell you so many Oscar stories that would get cut off the air so fast because the guy is just the most intense human being you've ever been around, and it's awesome. It just makes you every single day want to fight so hard.
And he's not just go ahead. No, he's not just I would call intense, but he's passionate.
That's
probably a better word. He loves the game. He loves young players. He wants to develop them, and he wants to instill a work ethic and a passion and a love for the game as well as the club as best he can. So
you got to see a little bit of Chris Lema though, because he was a Red Bulls Academy product.
Yeah. So I mean, I saw a lot of him. I remember even when I worked in the league office, I went down to Bradenton and watched him play when he was with the U17s, and I had a conversation with the coach down there. So I've seen a lot of him, especially he's played with a lot of Red Bull players who have gone through that Georgetown system as well. He's talented. He's good with his feet. I think there are probably maybe some questions on athleticism, and we'll see how he can move. But he's a talented player, no doubt. And I think that pairing him with a club like FC Dallas and a coach like Oscar, I think gives him the best opportunity. So I'm excited for him.
If you're a draft pick going late in the draft, you want to go to a club that plays young players, plays homegrowns, plays American players. FC Dallas is an excellent place for him to land.
And I think Oscar, he appreciates how to play the game correctly. And I know that I'm not going into detail in terms of what that means, but you can kind of feel that, and that he loves the game. He knows how it should be played. And Chris Lema he's a footballer.
We're basically halfway through the 2nd round here. As we continue and wait for this pick from San Jose, let's talk about FC Dallas this year. CCL on the horizon. They've got a rebound after missing the playoffs. Had such a great year before that, Matt. What are they going to be?
I don't know. I don't know because what happened in the second half of the season to FC Dallas last year is unprecedented. I've never seen a team that good in MLS tank that hard, and we know why it was. The locker room broke. Maxi Urruti wanted out. Hernan Grana was a problem. Kellen Acosta thought he was going to be moved. Walker Zimmerman wanted out. Maybe Barrios wanted out. Maybe Grazo wanted out as well. So they have most of those guys back, and they have to weave something coherent out of it. Good luck.
All right, we'll get to more on that in a second, actually. The pick is in here. I'll get back to you, Caitlin. San Jose are on the clock, and they've made a decision. Let's go to Philly.
With the 12th pick of the second round of the 2018 MLS Super Draft presented by Adidas, San Jose Earthquakes select from the University of Louisville, forward Mo Chow.
Atlanta United FC are now on the clock.
Mo Chow out of Louisville, 8 goals, 2 assists his senior season. But if you go back to 2015 at Cincy State, 25 goals and 11 assists in a single season. He impressed a little bit at the combine. Bobby, what'd you see?
I feel like I'm a little bit of a broken record because I applaud these picks, and that wasn't always true. If you had gone back to my draft, to other drafts, I really thought these teams were bad at drafting. But to me, this is another good one. Chow has top-end talent. He needs to learn the mental part of the game. He needs to make better decisions. But especially for that forward line with guys like Wando, Vaco, Hoyson, not super athletic, Chow is a really athletic player, has some flair. So again, I'm going to applaud this second-round pick.
Danny Hoyson re-signed. Was that a good move from San Jose? You just shrugged, Matt?
I like Hoyson. I don't know about Chow. I didn't see that much athleticism for him. I think he looks the part maybe, but he doesn't play fast. And his productivity hasn't matched his potential, even though he's played for a very good coach and a very good system. But we're in the middle of the second round here. So you take a flyer on a guy who you think can maybe has a chance at being an MLS caliber player. And Chuck does have that. But he's got to figure out how to get productivity out of that big body of his.
All right, let's talk Atlanta here, guys. And this is one of the most exciting teams in the league over the last year or so. Every single game they watch, you've got to tune in, and they might be making a big addition. Ezequiel Barco, what if they do it? What if they go spend double-digit in the millions?
I mean, they raised the bar when they went out and they got Miguel Almiron. And they'll raise it again when they sell Miguel Almiron, probably for twice what they paid for him, if not more. Barco is that, only more so. He's one of the very best teenagers in the entire world. He's a guy who has interest from multiple big European clubs, but he wants to play in Atlanta for a couple of years, and in part it's because of what that team has done, but in part it's because they went out and they got a coach with a global recognition in Tata Martino. So if they can get him and then coach him up, and then at age 20 flip him for multiple millions of dollars, they have sort of created a new way of doing business in MLS.
All right, let's get to the pick here. Atlanta United's pick is in. We're headed out to Philly.
With the 13th pick of the second round of the 2018 MLS Super Draft presented by Adidas, Atlanta United select from Clemson University midfielder Oliver Shannon.
Atlanta United FC are now on the clock.
Oliver Shannon out of Clemson, the midfielder. A starter his final 3 seasons, but really played most of the time for 4 first-team All-ACC his senior year. Headed into an Atlanta squad that's expected to be one of the most exciting, if not one of the best in MLS this season. Young, explosive, impressive. Shannon, what are they getting?
A destroyer, I think. Not a guy who just sits and protects in front of the back line, but a guy who, he's English. He runs around a lot, and he loves to try to spread the field. He has a chance to be an MLS caliber player. I don't know how they fit another international onto this team, even though, to be fair, they've done a really good job of getting green cards in Atlanta.
Let's take a look at the 11 as it stands right now. Bobby, tell us what we're seeing here.
Guys, I'm as stoked as anyone to watch this team. Kalen, how fun is this team going to watch? But I have one concern, and it's the balance. When you say exciting, there's also a drawback to that, right? At some point, you need someone to tackle. You need someone to do the little things. I asked Tata about this directly, and to be honest, he wasn't concerned at all. He felt he had Lorenowitz. He felt he had Carmona. So I'm stoked about it, but I am a little concerned that they need someone to carry the water.
I say forget it. Outscore them, keep going forward, send these guys forward, just run. All these guys can get up in the attack. You could see Barco potentially coming in for Gressel there. He also has the versatility to play in the midfield. But the one guy that I'm looking at the most here, the biggest addition, Darlington Nagbe so far. So much of the attack is these arrows going forward. Nagbe gives you something that can put his foot on the ball, step on it, give you a little bit added possession. So much criticism was laid on him for his lack of production in goals and assists. He's not expected to do that. They have the guns to do that, the weapons. Nagbe can be himself. I see this as a huge signing for them.
One point I want to make that you can never underestimate, and Ollie knows this completely trying to build a team, it's really hard to fit that many stars into an 11, into a locker room. Everyone wants the ball. Everyone wants the attention. So the bigger name guy you sign, it's harder to fit him into that cohesive system.
I think that's a really good point. Everybody's a hero when it's 70 degrees and sunny. And so, for Atlanta, what's most important is they've got to be winning, and if they start to lose, then the bigger names you have that are accustomed to having the ball all the time, things start to become challenging. So Tata's going to have his hands full, but it's a good problem to have, is having tons of good players on your team.
All right, Atlanta have back-to-back picks here in the second round. Let's go back to Philly for the 14th in the second round.
With the 14th pick of the second round of the 2018 MLS Super Draft, presented by Adidas, Atlanta United select from the University of Maryland, forward and member of Generation Adidas, Gordon Wild.
The Chicago Fire are now on the clock.
Got to be feeling some relief here. Gordon Wild, the final Generation Adidas player, comes off the board of the 37th overall pick to Atlanta United. He's 22, from Germany. Spent 3 years at the University of Maryland. Turned down that GA offer after his sophomore year. He had a huge year, that second one. 17 goals, first-team All-American. It went down the final year. 5 goals in the first 6, then out. Why, Doyle? What's wrong here?
It was tough to put a finger on what went wrong with Maryland. I mean, Maryland's collapse this year was even more epic than FC Dallas's. That Maryland was the best team in the country until like early October, and then they were the absolute worst team in the country. And Gordon Wild going dry in front of net was part of it. He's a poacher. He's a guy who finds the ball, finds spots in the box, and lets other guys do the work for him. That can work with Atlanta United, but I think he's going to have to prove it works first with Atlanta United too.
We'll see what happens here. Let's talk Chicago Fire. They're on the clock now with the 38th pick. Of course, involved in probably the biggest trade of the day. $1.2 million in allocation money coming their way. We've talked about how they might spend it. I want to talk about their ceiling. Ali, can they get to where they were last year? Or are they building even higher?
Absolutely. When I think about Chicago, I think about a team that's on the trend of going to MLS Cup. You look at those teams that they didn't do well, they didn't make the playoffs. All of a sudden, they made the playoffs, and the next thing you know, they're the next Toronto. In terms of when you look at Toronto's trajectory, in terms of when Tim Bezbatchenko just took over the team, had a coaching change. They didn't make the playoffs. All of a sudden, they changed the team out. They made the playoffs, but didn't do that well in the playoffs. And then you see the next year and the next years, they're making that jump. Chicago feels to me like that type of team. And when you look at the data points and you look at the types of players that they're acquiring, they're successful with those selections. Those players have done well. Yes, they've had some injuries, but they've done really well with some of those player acquisitions. I think Nelson's done a fantastic job. I think Pono's done a really good job. They've brought in a good staff. So they have all the makings of being a serious contender in the East. And now they've got a ton of money such that they can really either make an acquisition or make some changes, figure out the trade market over the next month and a half, or they can save that, put it in the bank, and maybe they do something in the summer, and make an acquisition. So I think I like the way Chicago is positioned. You hesitate. You may not like the fact that they did give away a very good player, but they got a lot for it.
A little tease for you here. Darren Eales will join us at the end of this broadcast. So stick with us through the end of the second round. The president of Atlanta United will join us at that time. Grant Lillard's a name that we haven't really talked about here. And he's the center back that comes in as a homegrown for the Chicago Fire. They expect a lot from him. They expect maybe a starter.
he could maybe be a starter. He was, along with Hilliard Arce, I think probably the best center back in college soccer this year. He was a 4-year player, played at Indiana, which made it all the way to the final. Big, good passer of the ball with his left foot. He's, I think, pretty aggressive stepping off of his line. He had things that Chicago needed on that back line in terms of physicality and aerial dominance and just that sort of calm left-footed presence. But he's a rookie, and teams that compete for MLS Cup generally don't start rookies in the center defense. So you have to wonder if some of that, haul they got for David Accam is going to go to getting a top-tier center back. And you also look at their roster; they have 2 wingers right now. One is Luis Solinak, who's fine, and the other is Daniel Johnson, who's a second-year player, was a combine hero last year. I like Daniel Johnson a lot, but again, not the type of guy who you pencil in as a starter on an MLS Cup contender. So Nelson Rodriguez, I think, has a ton of work to do. There's talent, but there's a lack of balance in this team that needs to be addressed in the coming weeks.
All right, the pick is in from the Chicago Fire. Let's go back out to Philadelphia for the 15th pick of the second round.
With the 15th pick of the second round of the 2018 MLS Super Draft, presented by Adidas, the Chicago Fire select from Clemson University midfielder Diego Campos.
The New York Red Bulls are now on the clock.
Diego Campos cut his hair, but he had quite the flow before. Doyle and Ali are sitting here very, very jealous of that. 10 goals, 9 assists his senior year at Clemson. Bobby, what are they getting here?
They're getting a goal creator, either out of the 9 spot or the 10 spot. He's not someone who'll get on the ball often. He's not a facilitator. He really is the guy that wants it and wants to try and find his way towards goal, which, apparently on the Chicago Fire, they need both a 10 and a winger right now. So there's a spot for him.
I think Baccaro maybe is their write him in pencil 10.
Yeah, it seems like it.
But Campos has a chance to win a job. He can. Look, we talked about Shaw a couple picks ago, saying his productivity didn't really match his potential. Campos is the other way around. He figured out he's not the most impressive guy out there if you look at him, but he figured out a way every year to be productive. He's a soccer player, and bet on that, I guess, if you're the Fire picking. Where they're picking right now.
It feels like a reach.
Couple of nice pieces from college coming into the attack. You'd expect them to go out and spend that money, though, on the market. To your point, Ali, earlier about Chicago and their next step in the progression, TFC lost in Montreal 3-0 in 2015 in that play-in game on the road. Mm-hmm. I saw that same sort of naivete from Chicago. The Red Bulls walked into Toyota Park and just beat them up in the playoffs. They didn't have that experience. It's really hard to replicate that. You saw the jump TFC took that next year. I think guys like Dax, some of those guys have already been there before, of course, Schweinsteiger. But for some of these other pieces around it, even Nikolic, getting that first playoff experience will help them when they lead into year 2 or year 3 of this new project.
Red Bulls on the clock. Of course, they want to get the ultimate prize, which is MLS Cup. Kaku Romero Gamarra is rumored to be the next piece for them. Many millions of dollars for the Argentine 22-year-old of Huracan. What do you make of this move, Ali, when you hear the Red Bulls perhaps spending this much money? 7 figures, 5, 6, 7 million.
Well, I think that the fans for the Red Bulls, you got to be excited if their club, just like any MLS club's fans, you got to be excited when your club is out there scouring the market to find a quality player that fits the way you want to play, and they're willing to spend the money to do it. So if you're a fan of the Red Bulls, you got to be pretty excited. At the end of the day, you got to see what's executed.
All right, pick is in for the New York Red Bulls. Well, let's go back out to Philadelphia and see who they took with the 39th overall pick.
With the 16th pick of the second round of the 2018 MLS Super Draft, presented by Adidas, New York Red Bulls select from the University of Wisconsin forward Tom Barlow.
The LA Galaxy are now on the clock.
Tom Barlow out of Wisconsin. Chris Mueller, of course, already went in this draft. Another compatriot as well out of Wisconsin. A good one for them. LA Galaxy on the clock now, guys. Siggy Schmidt apparently has the flu. He's back in his hotel room. He has been waiting for this one for a long time after they went out and got Hillard Arce with the second pick. What do we make of the LA Galaxy offseason outside of building through, just in terms of competing with LAFC? Have they done enough? What's that rivalry look like right now?
I don't think they've done enough yet because they don't have that. I mean, unless they can figure out a way to revitalize José Zardes and discover the 2014 version of José Zardes, they don't have that go-to goal scorer up top. And if you don't have that go-to goal scorer, then teams can sort of pinch in on Gio dos Santos and Romain Alessandrini, and it becomes that much more difficult. But it wasn't just the goal scorer they needed, and it wasn't just addressing the back line and goalkeeper and defensive midfield, which they did, and good job, Ziggy. They needed to change the culture. They needed to become accountable again, because I think the moves, I don't know what Chris Klein and Pete Vagenas were doing last winter when they made those moves, and there didn't seem to be much accountability or much thought put into it. They got 4 guys to play the same position. You could see the players fighting with each other. You could see blaming the coach, and to be fair, Kurt and Alfo didn't do great. All of that needed to go, and Ziggy Schmid needed to give this team accountability and an identity, and to me it feels like he's made some headway in that regard.
We should probably also note they lost a legendary manager in Bruce Arena who had his hands on everything in the LA Galaxy organization. So it's really hard to adapt as a club and be able to. They tried to go with the youth movement. The academy didn't quite bear fruit yet. Now they've really sort of did a reset, brought in some players with experience. I think they're in a much better place to start the year.
Some of that win now depleted their TAM resources. But they have this pick. Let's go to Philly to see who they took.
With the 17th pick of the second round of the 2018 MLS Super Draft, presented by Adidas, LA Galaxy select from Stanford University midfielder Drew Skundrich.
Minnesota United FC are now on the clock.
Drew Skundrich out of Stanford. Bobby, that means you get first crack.
Man, they want winners. What can you say? I mean, this goes exactly to what Matt said. It's a joke, right? Always play up Stanford. But what Doyle said, they need accountability. They need to change the culture. And who better can you bring in than guys that won 3 straight championships? Listen, Drew played center mid in college. He's going to have to move to outside back, but he's a guy that can play multiple positions. Decent athlete, but just a good person who has no problem raising the level of his teammates.
What's his position in MLS? Is he a 6?
No, absolutely not. Outside back.
All right. I got to break in right here, right now, because Susanna Collins is with Darren Eales, the president of Atlanta United. Let's go to Philly.
But Darren, when we spoke earlier, I mentioned Barco watch, and you kind of gave me a funny little look, but you just broke some pretty big news, didn't you?
Yeah, look, we're really excited. Atlanta United, signing Ezequiel Barco, one of the best under 19 players in the world. It really says a lot, I think, for the state of Major League Soccer and the way that this league is going. That a player like him would choose to come to MLS in Atlanta rather than some European options that he had.
How do you see him fitting into what is already a pretty potent attack at Atlanta United?
Yeah, look, it's a great problem for Tata to have, isn't it, really? You've got sort of, Joseph, Miggy, Tito, obviously now with Barco coming in as well. It gives us some real opportunities, but I do think he gives us something a little bit different. So, if you look back to our nemesis last year, DC United, and teams that sort of sit back, what Barco does is lets us have that player that can dribble and unlock a defence. So I think he does offer us something a little bit different, and I think that blend up front is going to be pretty potent.
Darren, thanks so much for stopping by again. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Suzanne.
Whoa, big news broke right here on the Super Draft broadcast. Ezequiel Barco. Barco Watch has been going on for a long time. It is over a multi-million-dollar transfer here. It is a big, big deal.
I was joking with a friend yesterday that Atlanta was going to steal everybody's spotlight by announcing Barco on the day of the draft. I respect it so much. Go out there and get all that shine on yourself. And look, all due respect to all the young men who were picked today, the name that be on every MLS fan's lips tonight is Ezequiel Barco. This is an acquisition unlike any other in MLS history. Full stop.
So I love the acquisition. I think it's great. I think it fits the way Tata wants to play. I think he'll fit well within the personnel. One of the things that I like a lot is the timing of the acquisition, because a lot of times these transactions, it takes a long time to complete them and just get them signed and done and dusted, and then you have a player that's coming in literally a week before the season starts. Now you've got a talented player that can fit into this roster, and hopefully he'll be able to start day one in preseason.
Not just talented, but a winner. Does he have the makings of a Stanford man, or is he more of a Cal Bear?
Well, we should also mention 18 years old. For those who don't know, 18 years old, coming from Argentina. It helps when Tata Martino walks into your door. He's coached Messi and a national team before, but he's ranked 17 in the world for teenagers. For reference, Weston McKennie is 19, Pulisic 4. This could be one of the record signings. We don't know the figures yet.
And was the best player on the field in the Copa Sudamerica final.
We're going to spend so much more time on this. We'll be right back. Minnesota United's pick is in, though. Let's go to Philly.
With the 18th pick of the second round of the 2018 MLS Super Draft, presented by Adidas, Minnesota United select from the University of Nebraska, Omaha, midfielder Xavier Gomez.
New York City FC are now on.
Xavier Gomez, after Nebraska, Omaha, midfielder, spent 4 years there, 5 goals, 8 assists in his senior year, first team All Summit League. Joining the Loons, have had a good draft day so far. Traded up, traded down, got the players they wanted. We'll see how they impact that first day roster. But unfortunately for the Loons, man, Atlanta United once again steals their thunder. Ezekiel Barco is the big news right now in Major League Soccer. And Darren Neal's kind of referenced that 1v1 ability. You talked about front sixes, Bobby. Their front six, where's it rank in the league right now?
Probably number 1. Player for player, it's got to be number 1. I can't emphasize enough. At some point, guys, you need balance to your team. Yeah. I mean, you can't just judge a team off front six. Don't get me wrong. I'm going to be really excited to watch this team play, but I'm still not going to put them ahead of Toronto or even probably NYCFC in the East.
I mean, I don't know who's going to win the ball back. Carmona runs a ton, but he's not like a ball winner. He's a harasser, and that's what Lorenowitz was so good at last year. And sliding Nagby into Lorenowitz's place, I don't get it. Nagby doesn't do that. So I'm with you. I think this team, they maybe lack some balance. But if you win a game 5-3 instead of 2-0, you still get 3 points. And right now, they look to me like they're built to win a lot of games 5-3.
And the one thing I would reference also is I hear what you're saying regarding balance. No team in the world is perfect. And you know, when you get an opportunity to acquire a certain player in the marketplace, you got to just make it happen. And then sometimes everything's not perfect. It doesn't always line up. And then you just got to find a way to make that happen, make it work.
It's good business, too.
Yeah,
I mean, they're going to be able to sell these guys. The rumored offers for Miguel Almiron are astronomical, you know, almost double what you've heard he was bought for. So Atlanta United's a unique situation. They're filling their stadium with 72,000. This is good business. It's a huge investment, but it's making sense.
All right, we'll see what it does on the field. Preseason opens very, very soon. Meanwhile, New York City FC's pick is in. Let's go back to Philly.
With the 19th pick of the second round of the 2018 MLS Super Draft, presented by Adidas, New York City FC select from Wright State University, defender A.J. Patterson.
The Houston Dynamo are now on the clock.
A.J. Patterson into the blue side of New York. 7 goals his senior year, so a set-piece threat for him and a goal threat as well. New York City FC, we mentioned their offseason. I think they're in the top. Where do you guys put them in the Eastern Conference?
They're at the top with Toronto and Atlanta. I think this is a team that is built to compete for the Shield. And the question for Patrick Vieira in 2018 is, can he figure it out in the playoffs? Because twice in a row now, this team has come into the postseason and kind of shrugged.
Do they have the mettle? Do they have the discipline, as you said, to go to Columbus on the road? Do they have the mettle to win a playoff game right now?
Well, I think it goes back to what Kalen was saying about Toronto taking it on the chin a couple of years ago at that game at Montreal, and then coming back the next year and making it all the way to MLS Cup, and then, of course, coming back the year after that and making it one step further. And I think that's the path that you're trying to take if you're NYCFC, right?
It takes experience, you know, even for a manager. Patrick Vieira, you saw his development from year 1 to year 2, now further into the playoffs. that red card really changed the game for them. They were still in that match against Columbus Crew SC. That's the beauty of MLS Cup playoffs. But yeah, I do think it is something about kind of getting your, taking your licks before you can really cross that next hurdle.
Theme is too deep this offseason, Ali. When you see this Joe Inge-Burnett signing, everything else, all these young players, they're too deep everywhere. This squad is now close to complete, I would think. What have you seen when you saw how they built this thing?
I don't think you can ever be too deep. It's a long season. You think about a league like MLS where in 1 week you're playing in one altitude and the other week you're playing in a different altitude. You look at the different weather patterns and the time zones and the length of the season. It's really grueling. Never mind national team call-ups. And so you really do need depth in your roster. And we talked about just the composition of the different rosters. And it's one of the reasons why you need pools of players from every different bucket that the league allows. So you can never be too deep. You never know when an injury is going to happen. As long as Coach Vieira can cultivate the right culture and environment and system of play, which I think we all know they have a system of play down there. So we'll see.
43rd overall pick is in from the Houston Dynamo. We're headed back to Philly to see who got taken.
With the 20th pick of the second round of the 2018 MLS Super Draft, presented by Adidas, Houston Dynamo select from Providence College forward Max Steves.
Columbus Crew SC are now on the clock.
Crew SC on the clock. Max Steves at the Combine out of Providence. Rookie of the Year last year went to Providence. That would be Julian Gressel. He's kind of a bruiser, Doyle. He was a big body there.
Yeah, not even kind of. 100% a bruiser. And if he's going to carve out an MLS career, it's going to be doing Alan Gordon stuff. It can't just be throwing his weight around in the box. We've seen it from Alan Gordon over the last really 10 years. He developed into a type of guy who could set his wingers up with some good footwork, had a little bit of vision. Max Steves is going to have to develop that. If they sell Kubo Torres, he's got a shot at making this roster and maybe playing some minutes as well.
I hope nobody downplays the Alan Gordon comment.
Yeah, Alan Gordon's awesome.
Every team should have an Alan Gordon. Yep. Every team should have someone who's a specialist in the air who can go in and bruise at the end, maybe even go in defending and clear out corners.
Yeah. Every team can have an Alan Gordon. He's a free agent.
He is.
He still hasn't been signed. What have we made of that free agency class here? Still a little bit slow, though. DeMarcus Beasley seems to have signed with Houston.
Yeah, I feel like the natural spot for Alan Gordon would have been at LAFC, but they already signed Harvey and Beitashour, and correct me if I'm wrong, you can only sign 2 free agents per draft class, right?
I can't correct you right now.
You can't correct me, all right. We've got to get Ben Bear on the phone. But, I mean, to me, Alan Gordon's the type of guy that any team that kind of has an idea that they want to compete for MLS Cup, you go out and you get him because he has had a knack for scoring big goals in big games throughout his career, and he will do the dirty work that other guys just don't like to do.
Yes and no. I hear what you're saying in terms of, hey, it's really good to have a guy that's physical, that's going to do the nitty-gritty work, that can maybe bounce in a goal here and there. I think it depends on how the team wants to play in terms of what style do they want to play. Does, as we're calling it, the Alan Gordon type mold, does he fit in on an Atlanta United? I'm not sure. So I really think it depends on what the, I won't call it philosophy, but what's the style of play? And I don't know if you need that type of player in every team in MLS.
Let's turn to Crew
maybe
SC.
for Houston.
Yeah, let's turn to Crew SC here, and they're on the clock. We're waiting to see who they'll take with this 44th overall pick. We know about the news around the club right now. It's a little bit of uncertainty. All Kamara as well as Justin Meram have requested trades. Greg Berhalter stood pat. We saw 1.2 for David Accam. What's it going to take to get one of these two guys if you're a team out there trying to make a deal?
Less than 1.2.
Less?
Maybe close, but less than 1.2. Meram is very good. Kamara is very good. They're not David Accam, but it might be close. Might be close to 1 million, maybe 800, 900,000.
Meram's better than David Accam. More productive, has a longer track record in the league. Doesn't maybe have, obviously doesn't have the pace, but he's more of a playmaker. He is a couple years older, so probably less than 1.2, but only because of the age, not because you're just wrong, Bobby.
I was going to say, it took you a while to get around to agreeing with Bobby.
Oh my goodness.
Well, I also think it also depends on what Columbus, if they're willing to part with one or both of these players, it depends on what they have lined up. You know, maybe it takes a little bit more because they don't have a replacement. Maybe it takes a little bit less because a team's willing to add in a player or some other assets. So I think it all depends. If you're going to get rid of one or two quality players, you need to have some reinforcements coming through.
Our LAFC, or excuse me, they'll come up at 47, but at 48, LA Galaxy, are they disappointed on this day? We saw the timeout with that second pick. Not to have made a move, not to have grabbed some headlines, not to have gotten some of those missing pieces?
I would be thrilled if I was the Galaxy, because LA just needed to get solid again. They just needed to get solid, and that's what Thomas Hilliard Arce is. He's just going to be a solid defender. He's never going to cost you games. He's going to be good in the locker room. He wins wherever he goes, and that's what the Galaxy need from that spot. If they want to swing for the fences, they can swing for the fences on the international market. In the draft, keep it simple.
All right, Crossia has made a decision here with the 44th overall pick. Let's go to Philly to see who it is.
With the 21st pick of the second round of the 2018 MLS Super Draft, presented by Adidas, Columbus Crew SC select from the University of Maryland, midfielder Jake Rosansky.
The Seattle Sounders FC are now...
Jake Rosansky, and that's interesting, Doyle. I heard you kind of snort there. He's signed with Maccabi Netanya. So this is a long-term play. They looked at the second round and said, take a flyer.
This is the Marcus Tracy Memorial. We know you're signing overseas, but we're going to draft you just to claim your rights. Rosansky's a good player, man. He's a Will Trapp style of midfielder, and then he's great with both feet, likes to get on the ball as much as possible, plays a little bit deeper, not really a destroyer, not really a playmaker, just a good soccer player. Smart pick from the Crew.
Seattle Sounders on the clock now, of course, lost an MLS Cup a year after winning it on penalty kicks. Roman Torres has a big summer. Jova Jones is out. Clint Dempsey is coming back. Where does this team stand, Bobby?
I would have loved to have seen them take a center back with a high ceiling. Marcel's getting older. Torres getting older. Torres going to the World Cup. I would have loved them seeing them move up in the draft, take an Omsberg, somebody with a high ceiling. After that, it's a solid team. It's hard to say where they need to improve other than getting younger at center back.
I'm with you there. They don't have, like, they drafted Tony Alfaro a couple years ago, and he's a pretty good, I think, depth player in MLS. They have the kid Sam Rogers coming up through their homegrown system, but I think he's probably a year or two away. They don't have that young, high upside center back. My guess is that Garth Lagerwey is going to be doing some shopping there, and I have to wonder about center forward as well. I love Will Bruin. He finds chances, but if you're going into MLS Cup and it's Will Bruin on your side versus Josie Altidore and Sebastian Javinko on the other side, that feels a little lopsided.
The only thing I would add to that is I don't disagree with the analysis, but also Seattle's they've got a second team. And so we don't know what they're doing with that second team, and are they going to add any players from that team to their first team roster before. A few years ago, Red Bulls had a player on their USL team by the name of Aaron Long, and they happened to be a starter last year.
Right, and we saw we saw it with Seattle last year with Nuhu Tolo at left back. Once Jovan Jones decided he wanted to take a mid-season vacation, Tolo was able to step in there and give them minutes. So they already have that pathway, but I don't know their pathway or their S2 pool well enough to say whether they have a high upside center back coming through.
All right, let's see who they took with this pick. Seattle Sounders on the clock. They've made a decision. We're headed to Philly.
With the 22nd pick of the second round of the 2018 MLS Super Draft, presented by Adidas, Seattle Sounders select from Duke University defender Marcus Fjortef.
Toronto FC are now on the...
Well, there you go, Marcus Fjortef. We're talking about a center back, perhaps with high upside. 6'5", a starter in all 4 years in the ACC. He's out of Asker in Norway. I saw you pumping your fist there, Ali Curtis. I got to call you out on this one. Duke guys stick together.
Well, we do, but you know, Duke has they've got a good pedigree. I got a chance to see him play about 4 or 5 months ago. He's a talented player. He's big, strong. He's got a great head on his shoulders. He's got a good IQ. So it should be interesting to see how he translates. He's got a couple center backs that are veteran at TFC that he can learn from.
His dad was an international as well for Norway, so he's got pedigree as well.
Yeah, Bakero owns another one like that. What'd you see, Bobby?
Of all the center backs in this draft, he was the most comfortable on the ball, the best at passing passing the ball through the lines. His problem is, one, he's not that fast, he's not athletic, and two, he's just too mistake prone. But I want to say something else about Seattle right now. Their big question, guys, is as Dempsey starts to get phased out, as Ozzie Alonso gets phased out of the starting 11, how do those two guys react to it? They were so good, partially because they were so confident, partially because they had so much pride. How do they react to not being in the starting 11?
By the way, you see the picks continuing there on the draft tracker. That's for the supplemental round. 46 is the final pick here. Thank you so much for following Super Draft coverage right here at MLSsoccer.com and YouTube. We've got some more coming for you. Best day, best drafts coming up in a little bit. Toronto FC are on the clock. Guys, Toronto, this pick, it's probably not that important overall to their season in 2018. Are they the prohibitive favorites? Gotta be.
I mean, yeah. Right, but we all know that it's hard to repeat. It's like the disease of more is what Pat Riley called it.
Michael Bradley. What's the word that he used over and over? Obsession?
Yeah. I mean, and they played like it last year, but I do wonder if maybe they're going to focus a little bit more on CCL than on the league to start the year, because if you want to lay down a marker in MLS, you become the first MLS team to win the modern version of the CCL.
They're already doing captain's practices in the snow up there. So if that tells you something about their mentality, party for a week, get back to it. CCL is what I'm most
captain's practice? For those at home that are wondering what that means.
It's Michael Bradley telling you to show up to practice. That's exactly what it is. And everyone shows up. But CCL is where I'm excited to watch them this year. I think this is one of the first teams, maybe since those Real Salt Lake teams, that has a real chance of making deep round. Well, excuse me, all due respect to Montreal Impact. But first round matchup with Colorado, you see them getting past that and then going to face a Mexican team. That's what I'm excited for.
All right, final pick of the 2018 Super Draft. Let's go out to Philly.
With the last pick of the second round of the 2018 MLS Super Draft presented by Adidas, Toronto FC select from Western Michigan University goalkeeper Drew Shepard. That concludes the draft. Thank you all for coming.
All right, plenty more to come right here. Let's go big picture, guys. Who had the best draft? Who impressed you most, Bill?
Minnesota United. They got Mason Toye, who I don't think is a starter right away, but he's a long-term asset. And then they got Wyatt Almsberg, who I think could maybe be a starter, especially if they're willing to move Calvo out to left back or maybe even play a back three. Carter Manley, not a great passer of the ball, but a rock defensively at right back. So I think they made themselves younger and they made themselves better today. They're a team that has to treat the draft differently because they're not a big budget team. And Manny Laga's got it right, so kudos to them.
Anybody else have a team outside of Minnesota? Who impressed you?
Doubling down on Minnesota. They got three guys that can get a lot of minutes in this league this year.
Can I throw Chicago Fire out there? Baquero, Mo Adams?
I like yes. Both of those additions as well. You know, I forgot about it because we've been talking about the David Accam thing so much. But yeah, Chicago Fire just got better, didn't they? Right up the spine of that team. And if you can get answers via the draft, that frees up more money and more room for Nelson Rodriguez to go out and do some shopping on the international market.
Sure, I think if you can get, I think Alexi maybe had mentioned at some point, but in general, if you can get one player that can improve your team out of the Super Draft, there's a lot of value in that. For me, I thought LAFC got two players that could that will get significant minutes in this year and years to come, and in that sense, I thought they did really well.
LAFC for me also. Best day. Moutinho, I think it's going to be rock solid for them, and Blackman as well. Solid contributor in the top three.
Looking at this draft, looking at the talent, who's the guy, if you had to pick one, that's going to have the biggest impact on 2018?
John Baquero, Rookie of the Year.
Calling it right now? Starting the...
Yeah, no, I don't want to. I got to bring it back. But I think he's got a chance to win his starting job. And if he does, then he's got a very good chance of being Rookie of the Year because he's a talent.
Who's the underrated, Bobby? Who's the guy that people
I'll triple down on the loons, and I'll say Almsberg starts at center back.
All right, who had the best day today? You mentioned David Accam. Of course, today was about the Super Draft dreams coming true, but this is a time for big trades. Who's the team that had the best day? Who walks away saying, we're set?
Philadelphia.
Yeah.
Yeah, you said it. David Accam changes the entire dynamic of that franchise. You heard Jim Curtin talk about not only his effect on the forward line, but how it's going to create space underneath for some of those playmakers to have some time and space on the ball. Philly fans are going to be really excited because, Atlanta started the day already happy. They got even happier with Barco. Philly, the most dramatic shift from being at the bottom to now feeling that they've got a real shot at the playoffs.
Seconded.
That's a really difficult question. What I will say is I think with the Philly and the Chicago transaction, both teams came away feeling like they got something good, which is always good in any type of transaction. Now, on one side, we talked about the economics of Chicago and how they freed up probably close to about 1.75 million of cash, however you want to put that, with budget and allocation and all that. And at the same time, now Philadelphia has absorbed that as well. So I'm curious to see if there's any other ancillary or is there any other impact on Philadelphia's roster, because now they're in a position where this is their guy. Do they need to clear any more space? I don't know the economics of their budget, nor do I know the economics of what's in their back pocket in terms of allocation and all that. But these were two huge moves. The good thing is that both teams gave up a lot, but they also walked away very happy.
All right, we move forward. Of course, the MLS season coming thick and fast. It'll start in March. Preseason's around the corner. What's the feeling like, guys? You getting a little bit of nervousness after you leave this draft floor? What are the players feeling right now?
Well, they're probably lamenting the offseason being over. Got a couple long preseason camps looking ahead. For me, I'm most excited looking forward to the introduction of Los Angeles Football Club. I think much has been made about their entry into the league. I've toured the stadium. It's a beautiful facility right in the heart of downtown Los Angeles. Of course, you've got the added dynamic of a potential rivalry with the LA Galaxy, and Bob Bradley back in the league. Him leading the ship, so to speak, I think is a positive for the league in general.
For the players, it's just a long few days. They're so excited. I hate to use the cliche, but you've just worked so many years. It truly is a dream come true. But now you've got to sit around for a week before you actually get out on the field. So it's just a ton of anticipation for the next 5 or 6 days.
Is it like jumping in the deep end here to jump in this first pro camp?
There's not even an alliteration for it. Yes, that first day, your adrenaline has never been so high.
All right, preseason coming up. Just around the corner, go download the MLS app for all the coverage. Of course, MLSsoccer.com is your source for the news for the supplemental draft next week. The drafts are not over, everybody. All the coverage right there. Thank you so much for watching and following along right here on the MLS Super Draft 2018 presented by Adidas. I'm Andrew Wiebe for these guys. We'll see you next time.